Good morning, freaks and trolls. Thank you out there who are the hate watchers. I really appreciate your view. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start the case of Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum, the barbarian foster parents who killed one of their children.
If there is anything that the juror wants to say to us, then I want it to communicate to us by way of note. And so that's something that I'll communicate directly to them. Is there? I don't want to have to interpret it through somebody else and know exactly what's being said. I believe that's the procedure that the court's review expects. Is there anything else we're asking that I do in that regard? Let's bring it up. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the next month. We are at that point in the trial where the attorneys have an opportunity to make opening statements. Statements the burden of proof. As a result, they have the opportunity to go first. Who is it that will be taking the opening statement? All right, Ms. Young, Station Young. Please proceed this time.
Since 2015, these defendants have been putting on a facade. But during this trial, they will be exposed to you as the liars, the abusers, and the murderers that they are. The dictionary defines facade as an outward appearance that is maintained to conceal an unpleasant reality. This is the Rosenbaum's home. It's a facade. Because on the outside, it appears to be a place of safety. It appeared to be the place where two young girls who had lived an unstable life from the time they were born would finally have a safe home to land in. But the reality, it was a home of terror, and a home of horror, and a home where Laila Daniels was murdered. These defendants are a facade. They appear to be nice, kind, and loving. That's how they presented themselves to everyone in 2015 when they wanted to get Millie Place and Laila Daniels. They appear to be that protection that these girls would finally have. But the reality, they are liars, abusers, and murderers. They were not protectors. Jennifer Rosenbaum was an abuser. You heard the judge read the indictment. Unknown manners, 49 charges. We don't know what she did to those babies, but we know she beat them. I'll rephrase that, Your Honor. The evidence will show that they are abusers, liars, and murderers. The evidence will show that Jennifer Rosenbaum beat Laila Daniels and she beat Millie Place unmercifully. We don't know if she kicked him, if she stumped him, or she punched him, but we know she did something to him to cause extreme damage. And Joseph Rosenbaum sat by and did nothing. Just let it happen. And that's why they are sitting here before you today. And the tears of facade. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these girls, they did not have the best start. Their mom, Tessa Daniels, she was addicted to drugs since she was a teenager. She struggled. Their life was unstable, unpredictable, and unreliable with her. She drugged them from place to place, home to home, and you'll hear sometimes she left them with strangers that she only knew for a matter of minutes. Their fathers, Jacob Place and Anthony Daniels, they were in and out of jail, not really a part of these girls' lives. So people believed from the moment that they came into this world, they were in harm's way, that they would not have that safety and the protection that they needed, that they deserved as young girls. So in May of 2015, when what the evidence would show as liars and abusers and murderers showed up, everybody had a sigh of relief because that facade was there. They were dressed well, they spoke well, they were educated and homeowners. Finally, these girls are going to be safe. Finally, they're going to have the protection that they need and they deserve. But that wasn't the reality at all. They were they were in more danger with these defendants than they were with anybody that they passed through the hands of over the course of their short lives. Now, on November the 17th, the facade came crumbling down. They were exposed. They were exposed to EMT, hospital staff, police officers, and defects workers for who they truly were. And that's why we're here today, because of those events that came to light on November the 17th. Now, the judge read you the indictment in this case, and he will tell you that the state has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That means that we must prove each and every count of that indictment, each element of those charges, to you beyond a reasonable doubt. And as the state, we take that very seriously. We want to make sure that we meet our burden. So over the course of this trial, you will hear from everyone. Family members, family friends, doctors, anyone who cared for these children. So you can understand that the danger they were in were when they were with these defendants, no one else. Now, you'll hear from, like I said, a lot of people. And at times it may get confusing because it's a lot to keep up with. So I ask you guys to have notepads in front of you. I ask that you take notes, write down dates, write down events, because you're going to have to recall it. Although we have a court reporter, you won't get a transcript to go back there with you. So I ask that you be attentive throughout the entire trial, even when it seems to be daunting. We need you to pay attention. These girls need you to pay attention. Now, it's funny to me that criminal trials usually start at the end of something. The end of an armed robbery, the end of a shoplifting, the end of a rape. In this case, unfortunately, at the end of Laila's life. But I think it's important for you to know the beginning, to know how we got here. You'll hear from Peggy Banks, who is the great-grandmother of Millie Place and Laila Daniel. She's probably the most stable person in these girls' lives. But unfortunately, due to her age and health conditions, she wasn't always able to get the girls and take them in and give them that safety and protection that they needed. She was there, but she could not have them where she was physically all the time. And then you have Regina Banks and Richard Clendenny. These are the girls' grandparents. And you'll hear for years they struggled with drugs, and they just were not people of safety for these girls. And I told you about Tessa Clendenny. This is a girl's mother. As I stated, Tessa was young. She struggled with drug addiction, and to be quite honest, she still struggled. And you'll hear from her. She's going to come into court, and she's going to testify. And she's lost a child, and she's still dealing with drugs. But what she's going to tell you, you will be able to find based on the evidence that she is credible. That her girls, when they were with her, no harm came to them. Now, Millie Place is the oldest. She was born in 2011. Her father was Jacob Place. And Anthony Daniel, and when Tessa broke up with Jacob Place, her and Anthony Daniel began to date, and they had a child, Laila Daniel. Laila was born on July the 18th of 2013. Millie was born on October 4th, 2011. She likes to tell you can remember it by saying 10-4. You'll hear from Millie, and she will come in and she will talk to you about what she endured and what she can remember, because I want you to remember she was very young when this happened, ladies and gentlemen. But she's going to come in here and she's going to do the best that she can to explain to you what happened to her when she was in the hands of these defendants. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I told you they went from hand to hand, over the course of literally a year. Probably for the first year of Millie's life, things seemed to be pretty stable. She was with Tessa and Jacob. They lived together, and they seemed to be doing fine. Tessa was working, Jacob was working. They were living in the house with Regina Banks. Now, there was an incident that I'm sure the defense would let you know about that I believe it was the beginning of 2013. It was New Year's Day. Millie got outside. She was probably a little bit over a year old, and she was walking down the street. Someone saw her, called the police, and defects came in. They came in. They didn't take Millie away. They said they didn't find her to have any injuries, any issues. They told the parents you need to lock the doors. You need to put those secure locks. If anybody has small kids, how you put those locks on the doors to keep them from going out. Sometimes it keeps the adults from going out too. But they put those on, and everything was fine. Then at some point in time, Tessa and Jacob Place, they parted ways, and she began to date Anthony Daniel. Shortly after Laila was born, almost 2 months later, Anthony Daniel was arrested, and Tessa fell apart. She relapsed. She just couldn't take it anymore, and she went missing. During that time, she was staying with her mother and Anthony's sister, Caitlin Daniel, who you'll hear from. And from about September of 2013 to July of 2014, Laila stayed with Regina and Caitlin. They moved to different apartments, but they kept Laila with them. They both were working. They made sure that they had a babysitter to take care of her while they were at work, and then they would come home and take care of her during that time. Millie, she wasn't with Caitlin and Regina. Tessa kept her with her. As her firstborn, she kind of clung on to Millie. So Millie would be with her sometimes. If she wasn't with Millie, she would have her with her great-grandmother, Peggy. And then in July of 2014, Regina and Caitlin lost their apartment. They had to move in with a friend, Cynthia Tate, who was someone that they worked with, and her daughter, Tiffany Shaw. And while they were living there, Tiffany Shaw began to take care of Laila. She also had a son that was around the same age as Laila, and she basically will tell you that she just kind of raised them like twins. They were just a few days apart. And they stayed there with her for almost a year. At some point in time, defects got involved, and they made them as a safety plan for these girls. And they would come and check and make sure that they were okay. And you'll hear that everything was fine when they were living with Cynthia Tate and Tiffany Shaw. Sometime between July and September of 2014, Tessa got Millie, and she brought her over to the Tate's house. And while at the Tate's house, Tiffany Shaw's dad and stepmom was there. Tessa knew that she had a probation warrant and that she was going to be going to jail. So she talked to the chaplains, and she said, hey, I need someone to take my baby. Can y'all please just take her and watch her for me until I get myself straightened out? The chaplains were elated because they couldn't have kids. So this was an opportunity for them to have a beautiful little girl in their house that they can just doll up and just really just give her all the love that they had in their hearts. And that's what they did. And she stayed with them for a few months. And you'll hear Peggy, Millie being her first great-grand, had a special bond with her. And she would go and she would visit Millie. But the chaplains lived up in Delano. And that was a far drive for Peggy. And it just got to the point where she couldn't make that drive anymore. And she probably did something that wasn't the best choice. Jacob showed up one month. And she said, hey, let's go get Millie. They rode up to Delano. They grabbed Millie, put her in the car, and drove off. As you can imagine, the chaplains lost their mind. They're like, what is going on? This baby that we thought we were going to have is gone. They called the police. The police came out, and DFACS got involved. And because there was no legal paperwork or any information to really say, hey, the chaplains could have them, they tried to reach out to Tessa. They got Tessa, and Tessa, would say, well, if my great-grandmother wants her, let her go with my great-grandmother. At that time, DFACS said, well, the Tates are already a safety plan for Laila. Laila will go with the Tates as well. Millie will go with the Tates as well. So for a few months, Millie and Laila lived with Cynthia Tate and Tiffany Shaw. And you will see photographs of when these girls were with them. They were there just being loved on, being cared for. But at some point, Millie began to want to be with her great-grandmother, because that's what she was used to. That was the stability, the constant that she had in her life. And so the Tates, they acquiesced and said, you know what, Peggy, you can take her. Millie wants to be with you. So probably right before Christmas, Millie goes to live with Peggy. But Laila stays with the Tates. And I tell you all of this, ladies and gentlemen, because I want you to understand how these girls were cared for, how they were loved on throughout this whole time. And they remained there until about April of 2015. And the Tates just got a little tired because DFACS was coming in. They wanted to check Lucas, who was Tiffany Shaw's son, and she said, enough is enough. I just can't do this anymore. DFACS, you have to figure out where these kids, where Laila can go, because I can't take care of her anymore. DFACS stepped in, and because they wanted the girls together, they began to reach out to different family members. Who will take these two sisters together? Because that's all really they had, were each other. So DFACS wanted to keep them together. They only had one family member that was willing to take in both the girls, and that was Elaine Place. And you'll hear, she only kept them for 2 days, unfortunately. And she just said, I can't do this anymore. And at that point, DFACS said, you know what, we're stepping in, and we're going to put them in foster care. And they ended up being with Miss Loretta Brown in April of 2015. And they were only there for a short period. I told you these babies just jumped around, just no stability. And with Miss Loretta Brown, they were good. They were fine. You'll see pictures, you'll see videos of how they were just happy, loving little girls, just enjoying life despite the hand they had been dealt. But then in June of 2015, Miss Loretta had an incident at her house that didn't involve the girls, and DFACS said, we got to move them out. Yet another move for the girls. Then they ended up going to the Lamberts. And you'll hear from Miss Lambert. She's been a foster parent for years. And she's one of those good, dedicated foster parents. She takes notes. She makes sure that the caseworker is doing their job. And if these babies come back looking some kind of way, she is going to notate it and tell somebody. And you're going to hear about the notes that she made once these defendants stepped into the picture. Because like I told you, in May of 2015, the defendant, being the evidence Michelle, being on Facebook, found Tessa Clinton, saw pictures of her girls. And I'm sure the defense is going to tell you, because they got to live up to that facade and the appearance, that Ms. Rosenbaum was a third-year law student at Emory Law School. She was interning at the DA's office. She was running for county commissioner. Facade. But they got her. And she said, oh, I'm in court. I saw your girls. I want to help you out. My prayers are with you. I'm willing to take them in. And so DFACS, believing what they saw on the outside, began to allow the girls to visit with the Rosenbaums. And eventually, at some point in July, they were placed there with them permanently, July 24th of 2015. And they remained there with the Rosenbaums until November 17th of 2015, when Laila was killed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I think is kind of interesting is a telltale sign of who these defendants really are, is that one of the first visits that they had with Laila, she ended up in a hospital room. In her last day, her last breath, her last moment on life with them, ended her up in a hospital room. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I believe throughout this trial, there are going to be a lot of lies that you are going to hear. Because the defendant, they spend a web of lies from beginning to end. That's what the evidence is going to show. I'm not even going, because the judge is going to tell you, you don't believe what I say. Believe what comes from that witness stand and the evidence that is presented throughout this trial. And that evidence is going to show they are liars. Every moment they got, they lied. From the moment that they began to seek out these girls. Because they saw them out. The history. How they got the girls. You hear, and I'll back up just a little bit and give you a little bit of a preview. Tessa and Jen at some point were in foster care together when they were young. And that's how they knew one another. And Jennifer went on Facebook looking at all her foster siblings or people she'd been in foster care for some reason unknown to this day. And that's how she found Tessa and knew that Millie and Laila were her kids. She began to tell folks that, oh, we were really close friends, we were good friends, and that's why the defense said, okay, this is a good person. This can be a fictive kin placement. Versus being a foster care, these kids can be with somebody that is kind of close to their family. But that's not true, ladies and gentlemen. You hear that at some point, Tessa and Jennifer did not have a good relationship. There's some backstory about a guy that they didn't like each other over. So it wasn't this, oh, this is my foster sister, and I really just want to help her out. It was just a lie. And you'll hear when she met folks and she talked about how she had the girls and why she got the girls. Some people she would tell, oh, Tessa reached out to me and asked me to get the girls. Oh, DFAX reached out to me and asked me to take the girls. All lies. And then when folks would ask her, or not even ask why the girls were in foster care, oh, they were being physically abused by their parents. Telling outrageous stories of what happened to the girls when they were in the care of Tessa. All lies. You'll hear that she lied about the girls going to daycare. I don't know why, it's just, some people just lie to lie. But the evidence will show these girls were never in daycare. They were never in school. She lied about the girls going to counseling. When they were with them, there wasn't any counseling going on. But that's what she's telling people so she can keep, I guess the girls kind of close to her because that's what she would use to cancel visitation with family members. Because Peggy still wanted to see the girls, and she would say, oh, the girls have counseling, they can't see you today. I believe the evidence will show us because they were bruised up and she didn't want anybody to see them. So she told that lie of counseling. Doctors, she would lie to folks and say, oh, the girls were sick, I had to take them to the doctor's office. The evidence will show there were no doctor visits on those dates that she's claiming they were doctor visits. There were no hospital visits, there were no ER visits, except for when she was harming the girls, and we're going to talk about that. The injuries. You will see over the course of this trial, from the time these girls get with them, they are having injuries. They're not no kids are small, they fall, they bump their head, and they do all kinds of things. But consistently, a bump on the head, a burn on the hand, a bump on the leg, a bruise on the eye, all under their watch. So much so that Ms. Lambert said, hey, to DFAX, not still believing that facade. I just don't think they're ready to handle kids. It looks like they're not supervising them right. Not that they're abusing them, but I think they just need to pay a little bit closer attention to these kids. Jennifer would say, oh, they fell in the playground. Oh, they got hurt at daycare that they didn't attend. Oh, they fell down the stairs or they fell off the bed. No doctor's visits for that. The story that she tells about falling down the stairs inconsistent with the injuries that other medical professionals saw. Just a web of lies. And then you heard about broken bones. We asked y'all about broken bones. On October the 19th, she showed up to the hospital again with Laila. And this time Laila has a broken leg. And she tells a gamut of lies. First, it starts out with, she fell in a hole at Nana's house, and that's Peggy Banks. You hear that Peggy Banks had not seen Laila and she had not been to her house. And in fact, there are no holes in the backyard at Ms. Banks' house. Just a lie. Then she coupled it with, oh, she fell at gymnastics. First, let's start with, she was never even enrolled in gymnastics. A lie. Second, let's start with, I don't know if any of you have kids that have gone to gymnastics class. I think a couple of you on the jury said y'all had some experience with that. She was 2. So she's in that toddler effect on stage. She's on the little, I think it's like the ice slide, where there's padding everywhere, no high bars, and they are supporting them on every step that they take. Not possible that she broke her leg in gymnastics. But you got a child with a broken leg and you got to explain how it happened. And what does she resort to? What she always resorts to, a lie. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the most egregious lie of all came on November the 17th of 2015. At 5:42 p.m., a call came in to 911. Oh, I have a child, she's choking on chicken. You'll hear the EMTs rush there. When they got there, first of all, on the phone, you'll hear her giving CPR, asking about CPR. And then you'll hear her say, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to hurt her. We'll talk about that. But the EMT arrived, thinking we have a child that is choking. We got all our equipment ready. We're ready to try to help this child get whatever's lodged in her throat, because that's what choking means. Something is obstructing your airway. There is something in there that cannot allow you to breathe. When the EMT gets there, they begin to check. They check her breathing, find that she's not breathing. But also they find there is no obstruction. The EMT will tell you, I did what I'm supposed to do. I put her over, I gave her a couple of back blows, nothing came out. But when I turned that baby over, what I saw told me, this is not about choking. This is something way different. And you will see the photographs, ladies and gentlemen. It is horrific. But she continued with her lie. She was choking on chicken. The EMT will tell you, we put that baby in there, we had to intubate her. We're giving her compressions. She does not have a pulse. And when we intubated her, we're thinking it's going to be difficult because there's something in her airway. Easy to go in, not a problem, because you know why? Another lie. There was no chicken, there was no choking. What the evidence will show is that there was a severe, brutal beating that day. And we're going to be clear, it wasn't the first time. This one was just the worst one. They get Laila into the ambulance and take her to the hospital. And because it's a baby, they'll tell you she didn't have any breath. She didn't have any pulse, but nobody wants a baby to be dead on their watch. So they worked and they worked and they worked. When they got her to the hospital staff worked and worked and worked. But it was too late. She was gone. So everybody, as you have to do when it's a child that is dead, let's stop, let's take a breath, and let's look. And when they looked, what they saw shocked their conscience. Laila was bruised from head to toe. The doctors will tell you that she had abrasions to her ears. And you'll hear from the expert who will tell you that is a telltale sign of physical abuse. And they'll go through, because kids, that's a protected area. So it's hard to get a bruise there unless somebody causes it, by pinching, slapping you, or doing something that causes blunt force trauma. She had bruising to her neck. Once again, a protected area. That's what your head is for. Little kids, they got big heads, so their necks are real protected. But she had bruising all along her neck. Bruising on her chest area. Bruising on her arms. And you'll see that there's this mark on her stomach that nobody can explain what it is or where it came from. But what you will hear over the course of the testimony, it wasn't there before she got to them. Abdominal bruising. And ladies and gentlemen, they talk about, oh, bad CPR, could have been the CPR. It's bruising down here. You ain't doing CPR down here. CPR is up here. Bruising in her groin. I don't know how other way to get there except for abuse. Maybe little stumps. Abrasions all on the inside of her thighs, on the back of her thighs. Abrasions to her hands, injuries to her palms. That the doctors will tell you what can be consistent with a pat, some blunt force trauma. Bruising on her shins and bruising on her feet. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to sit here and tell you that every bruise on that baby was a part of abuse by them, because she was a kid. But the most egregious ones in those areas where doctors will tell you, nah, kids ain't getting no bruises falling on the playground or falling down the stairs, not there. Those are the ones we're talking about. Bruises all in her head. And not just the back. You know, a kid may fall hit the front of their head, they may fall hit the back of their head. The top of their head. What she was doing, diving up the stairs onto the top of her head? I doubt it. Maybe she was getting bust on the top of her head. Bruises to her butt. And they'll tell you this is a fleshy part. Hard to bruise unless it's some real serious force coming behind it. With a hand, with a belt, with some object. As I said, bruising to the back of her thighs. And the most extensive bruising on her back. From her neck down to her butt. I'm not done, ladies and gentlemen. That's not all what she did to this baby. And when you look at those outer bruises, because that's what we just talked about. I'm talking to you about those inner bruises. Those outer bruises, they're not all new. They're in different stages of healing. So like I told you, the evidence will be clear. This wasn't the first beating that Laila had suffered. But we're going to talk about those internal injuries. Her tibia, which we talked about, was broken and healed. She got it treated. Because it probably hurt so bad the baby couldn't walk. At some point, you got to do something. So she did get that set. How she broke it, I don't know, but I can tell you it wasn't that gymnastics. Her arm was broken. It was broken in such a way, when the ER staff took a step back, they said, what's wrong with her arm? It's bowed out. It doesn't look right. So they x-rayed and said, this arm has been broken, and it has not been treated, and it's healing. The healing of it is not proper. It's so improper that you can see the outward bend of it from outside of her skin. Never been treated. And I'm gonna tell you, I think some of y'all had some broken bones. And if you got a broken bone, the evidence will show that it's going to hurt. And you're gonna know that a 2-year-old has a broken bone. So if you sit in the house and she's holding her arm and you don't do anything, you're just as culpable as the person that broke it. Posterior rib fractures. And we talked about CPR, and I know y'all probably got tired about it. But that's what they're gonna tell, oh, she broke the rib from CPR, but I want you to pay attention. I didn't go to medical school, wasn't smart enough. So posterior, I'm like, what does that mean? Her back. The back rib. Not the front where people expect if you press it down, you might break a rib. But what's interesting about that rib fracture that she had, it was old. It was healing. It wasn't even something that happened that day. It was from another beating that she had given a couple of weeks ago. Injuries, I told you, all in her head, and unfortunately you will have to look at the autopsy pictures, and they're horrific. But what's interesting about our bodies is even the things you can't see from the outside, and you open it up, the bruises in her head. Not just one, not just two, but multiple. In places that you wouldn't expect from just a normal 2-year-old falling down from play. And then you'll see that in some of the autopsy photos, the injuries from the outside that you couldn't see are the ones that caused her death, ladies and gentlemen. A lacerated liver. That means that she had so much pressure, so much force, so much blunt trauma to her abdomen that it pushed all the way back to her spine, and with such force, it caused her liver to slice. And it's not a little slice, it's a big slice, so that means that was a big force. Not something you would get from CPR. A macerated laceration, hemorrhaging, and internal bleeding. Basically what that means is she was bruised all in the inside. Her organs were bruised and broken and bleeding. And the worst injury of all, what ultimately caused her death, was her pancreas was transected. Your pancreas comes in one part. When they opened Laila up in that autopsy, it was in 2. That's just how hard she had been hit by this defendant. Or stalked, or kneed, but with such force that her little body could not take it, and her organs began to split and tear and rip. And then she bled to death. And they may say that, it may have looked like choking, but what she was doing was suffocating and dying due to the internal bleeding that had been caused by this defendant. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to be clear, and I want you to pay attention when they're talking the medical talk, that we're not just talking about internal bruising from November the 17th. She got old, healed internal injuries in her abdomen. So when they try to tell you CPR from that day, a lie. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's Laila. So the hospital staff is thinking, if this baby look like this, what's going on with that other baby? So they pull Millie in, who is sitting at the side of this defendant, because everybody's believing that facade. Everybody's believing that, oh, they are just this big, happy family. Oh, woe is them. These babies, oh my God, she's lost a child. We need to gather around her. A facade.
Excuse me, that was my poster. You just threw over.
Excuse me. Take it out.
A facade, ladies and gentlemen. That's what they want to show you, this picture-perfect family. But that's not what it was. When they pulled Millie in and they checked her, bruises, not as severe as Laila, but enough to let you know that she was also being abused. She has what they call petechiae on the side of her ear. And the doctors will tell you it goes from her ear down the side of her face onto her neck, consistent with blunt force trauma, like a slap. Not from just regular child's play. Petechiae on the other side of her neck. So I want to be clear, on this side and on that side. So they come and, oh, she fell down. Did she fall down and bounce on one side and bounce on the other? The evidence is going to show that's not what happened. Right next to her right cheek, large bruises on the inside of her arm, like a big bruise on her arm, near her elbow. Small little bruises all over her body that could be consistent with childhood play. But then the worst, all along the side of her hip, wrapping around her back and down to her buttocks. Bruises, different looking bruises, different stages of healing. And then they said, well, this one child, she had broken bones that hadn't been tended to. Let's do an x-ray and see about Millie. And what do they find? She has a healing fracture to her elbow. Not from gymnastics, not from any playground, but from abuse. Now, during jury selection, as I said, the defense talked to you a lot about CPR. I don't know what Ms. Moe is going to tell you. She actually doesn't have to tell you anything, because the state has the burden. But I think they're going to talk to you about she was choking. And I told you how that is inconsistent with the evidence that you'll hear. Accidental CPR, doing it wrong, bruises that are old and healing. Bruises down here, bruises all down her back, bruises on her head. That's not from bad CPR, that's from abuse. Not, oh, they're bumps and bruises. No, they're not. Some of them are, but most of them are from abuse. It's a facade, ladies and gentlemen. And it's time for them to be exposed to you. And that's what the state intends to do during this trial, to bring you evidence to show you the truth, because that's what we're all here seeking, the truth. And I can tell you it's not going to come from that table. What you have to do as you look at the evidence, as you process it as it comes in, is look at it in totality, the totality of the circumstances. Not just one thing, but all of it. And when you look at all of those things, you'll see that there's no evidence of any food in her throat, so there's no choking. You'll hear that the medical doctors will talk about a transected pancreas, a lacerated liver. I think she had bruising to her intestines. All abdominal injuries is not consistent with bad CPR. And I don't know if they've even seen a case where you've had all of those injuries from bad CPR. It's a lack of cases because it just doesn't happen, because that is not what the evidence is going to show that happened in this case. And I told you, extensive and old and new bruises. That's not from a one-time incident. That's from weeks of abuse. The evidence is going to show these babies were with them, not one day of peace. Oh, they got nice, pretty pictures. They dress them up and they put bows in their head. And when they get them home, they beat and brutalize. And on November the 17th, they murdered Laila Daniels. Healing fractures. And then if this is bad CPR, one-time incident, why do you, this is what's important about the evidence. There is a second child who wasn't choking on chicken, who has broken bones and bruises all over her body. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you this is a facade. And they will be exposed during this trial. The unpleasant reality, and unfortunately, you are the ones who will have to make that unpleasant reality known to everyone in this courtroom, is that they are guilty of each and every count of that indictment. And at the end of this trial, I will ask that you find them as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Ms. Moe.
See, this didn't belong to the city. This was not an exhibit of theirs. It's an exhibit of ours that they purloined, that they stole right beneath our eyes and used in their case. And that is symbolic for the way they are handling this entire case. This case is about a brief period of time, 3.5 months. 3.5 months between July and November of 2015. And be sure you keep that in mind, 3.5 months, when Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum volunteered to become foster parents for 2 little girls who had been taken away from their parents because of meth usage. You will hear that defects does not terminate parental rights for nothing. These children were taken away from their parents. Jennifer, herself a foster child, when she was growing up, had known Tessa Clendenning. And what the state does not tell you, and what is important for you to know, is what the state chose not to tell you. What the state chose not to tell you is that Tessa Clendenning was more than delighted to have them, the Rosenbaums, taking care of their children. Not only were they delighted at the beginning, they were delighted in the middle, they were delighted up until the end. You will hear Peggy gave statements, Kim Smith, Peggy's sister, gave statements to police. This cannot be abuse. This cannot be anything the Rosenbaums did. You will hear that defects workers will tell you that Jennifer had those children clinging to her. They loved on her and Joe. Both girls loved on her and Joe. You do not love abusers. You do not cuddle up with abusers. You will hear evidence that Jennifer took them wherever she went. So this notion that you have heard that she wasn't taking them out in public, you will hear evidence and you will see proof beyond a reasonable doubt that she did take them out in public. In fact, there are pictures for almost every day that these children were in custody of Joseph and Jennifer Rosenbaum. You will hear that she loved them, that she dressed them, she sewed for them, she made sure they were taken care of, she made them healthy foods, made sure they ate healthy foods, and outfitted their bedroom with all the toys a child could want, plus a TV, plus a tablet, so that the children could learn educational things on their own iPad and play educational games to learn new words and numbers. You do not do this. The evidence will show you do not do this when you are abusing children. During this time, Jennifer was a third-year law student at Emory Law School. Joseph was a corrections officer. They traded off responsibility for the care of the girls. But there were times when the girls were under the care of Jennifer Rosenbaum and Joseph had to work. He was working 2 jobs, not 1, but 2. He was also working security. So he was gone most of the time. When he was working a job and Jennifer had school, what did she do? Well, she let the children stay with babysitters at times, family members, people that she trusted. She also took the children with her, took the children to law school. And you will see pictures of that. You will see pictures of the children sitting in law school and behaving themselves, coloring. You will see all that, and that's evidence that comes to you directly from something concrete. It's not something that is yelled at you at the top of one's voice. It is merely and completely a true artifact of the time period that you are being asked to sit in judgment for. Lots of times, Joseph was not there. Joseph suffers from cystic fibrosis and diabetes. He frequently had to go to the doctor, had to go to hospital visits, and so he was not there on most occasions. He was frequently, on those occasions, Jennifer would pack them up and take the girls with her, wherever she went. Was it to class, to commission meetings? Because yes, as Ms. Young told you, she was running for Henry County Commissioner. So she took them to commission meetings. She took them with her wherever she went. The Rosenbaums loved the girls, and the girls loved the Rosenbaums. You will hear from defects workers that the girls were comfortable in the home and that they loved on Joe and Jennifer. You will hear evidence that the children participated in extracurricular activities and went to church daycare. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard wild accusations against the Rosenbaums, wild accusations against the defense. And I ask you just to hold the state to its burden and to their lies and to their misstatements to you. Because as you will see, the children did go to daycare. You will also see that the state is misinformed. They went to daycare, they went to church, they were with babysitters, they were with the Rosenbaums, they were with other people. Millie, in particular, enjoyed gymnastics, and you're going to hear a lot about gymnastics. You're going to see pictures taken from that time, not recent pictures all doctored up, as the state would have you see. You will see pictures from that time of what the gym looked at that time. You will hear evidence that Laila had taken a class with her mom, with Jennifer. She took a pre-class to see if she would be really interested in doing that. And then after that, she would accompany her big sister to class. Jennifer would stay and watch them, and Laila would be there as well. They also had regular doctor's visits at this time, and you will hear that there is absolutely no evidence of abuse at that time, or at any time during the 3.5 months that these children were with the Rosenbaums. You will hear about the fractured leg, and this occurred over some time. It was not due to gymnastics, it was due to a combination of things. Millie told Jennifer that Laila fell at her Nana's house. in a hole. And Laila, in fact, was favoring her leg, and Jennifer noticed that. But it seemed to be getting better. There was a visit to gymnastics, and the girls were playing on the bars. The equipment was out there, and people, unlike what you might expect, parents were allowed to run of the place, and they were able to play on the equipment unsupervised. Laila was playing on the bars with her mother. She slipped off the bar and fell on the mat. No one thought anything of it. No one filed a report. No one thought there was any problem. Joseph took pictures of everything. They took pictures constantly. You will see those pictures. There are over 2,000 pictures that were taken of these girls. That is not what an abuser does. They documented their lives with Laila and Millie by photographing them and trying to build memories of their time together, a time they thoroughly enjoyed. Then tragedy struck, and you're going to hear Ms. Lambert talk about a bruise here, a bruise there. You also see and hear DFACS workers tell you unequivocally they saw those bruises too, and they were in fact healing. They were not fresh bruises that were done by the Rosenbaums as they visited with these girls. And you heard Ms. Young tell you that this child started her life with the Rosenbaums in a hospital. Well, let's talk about the truth instead of manufacturing the truth here. Let's talk about the truth. What happened the first time they had her, they went to a party, to a barbecue, employees' barbecue for Spalding County. The child ate, the child seemed fine, and then the child started throwing up. She returned the child and said the child is throwing up. The child was taken to the emergency room and in fact had a viral infection. Now to blame a viral infection on the Rosenbaums is a little much. And you will hear that this viral infection was throughout the household in which the child was living at the time. Tragedy struck on November 17th. And their lives would be changed forever by that. While eating dinner, Laila began to choke on a piece of chicken tender. Not chicken bone, as has been reported by the media, not a piece of bone, but a chicken tender. Jennifer was the only one home at the time, and how do we know this? Because Joseph was at Spalding County Correctional Institute where he worked. She reacted instinctively to help Laila, and what the state keeps talking about is CPR, CPR, CPR. What they don't mention, and I did not hear was said once in opening statement, was about Heimlich maneuver. And you will hear that there is literature, in the medical literature, about the Heimlich maneuver and how, if misapplied, not done properly, it can cause the rupturing of pancreas. That is documented. The doctors will talk to you about it. You will hear about this. Not from the state, but you will hear about it from the defense. The defense is going to bring to you, even though we have no burden to do so, don't have to do a thing. We are going to be calling a number of witnesses. We are going to be calling the former medical director of the GHI. And he is going to help you go through the medical evidence and see it for what it really is. And I ask you to wait to make your decision until such time as you have heard from everybody. It's very easy to do what the state and the media have done in this case, which is just sensationalize it to the hilt and not care about the due process rights, not care about the fact that what has to be done is it has to be tried in a court of law. If you heard the state's opening argument, immediate question is, why in the world are these people here? Why are they pleading, signing their name, and said not guilty? Everyone knows if you plead guilty, you get a better deal. Why are they saying they're not guilty? They're saying they're not guilty because they're not guilty, they're innocent. She reacted instinctively to Laila by attempting the Heimlich maneuver. And she did that over and over again. And you will hear that that involved the back and the chest and the stomach. And you will hear that Jennifer was not trained in either CPR or Heimlich maneuver. What she did was what she saw on TV. And unfortunately, what that meant was the child was subjected to adult CPR and adult Heimlich maneuver. You will hear from the doctors that there is, and from the EMTs, that there is a reason why you do not do adult CPR and adult Heimlich maneuver on a child. You do not use your two hands to do compressions like you see done for adults. You do not pound on the back like you see done for adults. What you do is you use two fingers and you press gently back and forth. That is not what happened to Laila, unfortunately, that night. And that haunts Jennifer and will live with her forever. She did CPR, she did the Heimlich maneuver over and over again. She used the knife to hold down the tongue while she swept, trying to get the food out. You will hear that the child threw up. In fact, there was chicken in the sink. Jennifer had the child up against the sink, and the child ejected the chicken. So that explains why they didn't find anything in the throat. You will hear Jennifer's 911 call. You will hear how she's trying to take direction. By the time the paramedics had arrived, Laila was still alive, but just barely. She died shortly thereafter, on her way or at the hospital. You will hear that the EMTs and the police left Millie with Jennifer. Millie and Jennifer came to the hospital together. You will hear from Samantha White, who is the caseworker assigned to Jennifer and Joe's foster parenting of these children, tell you that she could hear Jennifer's wailing from the minute Jennifer got there. She was in the hospital and Jennifer was in the parking lot. Yes, you can be sarcastic and try and malign Jennifer and Joseph. You will hear people say, well, she didn't cry when I saw her. But you will hear that she cried mightily when she got to the hospital. She cried mightily when she could, when she was grieving. And we don't all grieve the same way. She came to the hospital, and events were about to take a turn that neither Jennifer nor Joseph could have anticipated. What was a horrible accident was going to be turned into a vendetta against these two folks. A vendetta that has continued to this very day, to this very minute, when Miss Young got up here and continued that vendetta. Someone has to be blamed. A child is dead. Someone has to pay. And what they're doing is mixing bad medicine together with sensationalism and blaming the first easy target instead of looking for the truth of the matter and seeing what really happened and seeing it for the accident it was. During the course of this trial, you're going to hear a lot of evidence about Jennifer and Joseph, mainly about Jennifer. You will hear that Jennifer, a young lawyer in training, could be brash. She spoke her mind. She enjoyed getting involved in politics. She was running for county commissioner. She was an up-and-comer in the legal community. You will hear that at times she could be critical and outspoken against politicians, and that eventually she sought to run for office against an incumbent who was very much liked. She sought to run against him, and that did not please the powers that be. You will hear that Jennifer did not hide her views and didn't hesitate to speak her mind. She made enemies in Henry County government. She criticized her opponent. She criticized the police chief of Henry County and referred to some officials as corrupt. This is not how you make friends, but Jennifer is young, and she saw herself speaking truth to power, of trying to change what she perceived to be a culture of corruption in local government. As a result, when this accident occurred, there was no shortage of folks to relish her comeuppance. Her political opponents set out to make sure she was painted in the worst light possible. This fervor took on a life of its own, and as the evidence will show, the police 3 DA's offices and the press all rushed to judgment and labeled the death a murder instead of seeing it for the terrible accident that it was. An accident gets a brief mention in the paper, but if you can talk about a killing, as Ms. Young put it, a murder, and about liars, that becomes grist for the media to sensationalize the story, boost their ratings, and they're here doing exactly that today, and we'll be here for the next week, 3 weeks that we will be here. In the end, that destroyed the lives of Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum, who were only trying to improve their community and make the lives of these 2 children better. You heard the indictment, 49 counts. How many counts does it take to say murder, aggravated assault? Do you need 49 different times to assert it? That is more vendetta against Joseph and Jennifer. There are 49 counts. There must be something to it. And that's the deceptive part on the part of the state. They are wanting you to decide based on emotion and alarm. The indictment of Jennifer and Joseph turned the public against them before the first piece of evidence was examined. You will see how this rush to judgment poisoned witnesses. You will see how the community was led to believe, for example, that Laila had been starved. That was a story that went through the press at one point. You will see that that was a notion made popular by Detective Thompson, the leading detective in the case. He came up with this idea all on his own, without a scrap of medical evidence, based on his seeing Laila once at the hospital and decided she had been starved. He took out warrants saying she'd been starved, and that was communicated in some way to the media and then to the general public. That mistake informed his conversations with witnesses and family members, and as a result, you will hear that Millie, after she was left in the care of her biological mother and her great-grandmother, Millie was said to have exclaimed to one of the foster mothers, "They don't put food in our bellies." Or on another occasion, that Jennifer fed Millie but not Laila. The truth, however, is not what Detective Robinson stated and took out from his warrants. The truth is that according to the state's own doctors and according to the medical examiner that the state used, both girls were well nourished. That means they were well fed. But that is not sensational. And that is not reported. Another notion put forth by the police was the idea that because Laila's anus was dilated, she had been sexually abused. That ran around town. You will hear that this too was a total fabrication, either based on ignorance or an intent to malign Jennifer and Joseph. The truth of the matter, you will hear, is that there was no abuse, sexual or otherwise, and that the dilation of the anus is a normal occurrence when a child dies. Is a normal biological function of the body shutting down. But before they came to this conclusion, the state had sought warrants for DNA and had released this information to the wider public, prejudicing the community against Jennifer and Joseph by passing along information that was manifestly untrue. You are going to hear accusations that when the girls were with the Rosenbaums, they showed up with bruises. And you will see the pictures of these bruises, and you will hear about, basically, you're going to hear about the type of bruises that children get into, especially children who are rough and tumble. And you will hear that these girls played, and they played hard. The bruise, the scratch to the knee, the knock under the eye, a bruise on the wrist. Those bruises that you will hear Ms. Lambert talk about were bruises that occurred before the Rosenbaums came on the watch. You will hear that those bruises were healed, were healing, and old. You will hear that DFACS was made aware of them, and that they made a conscious decision that these were, A, healing and old, and even if they were Rosenbaum's watch, they were the regular rough and tumble type bruises that kids get. Then you will hear that the child had these other bruises. the bruises that were documented and talked about by the state. Her back was covered in a bruise. And what you're going to hear, again, misstatements that you're going to hear, is old injuries and new injuries. You're going to hear that the bruises, according to the state, were in stages of healing. And you will also hear, contrary to what the state says, and the police told Samantha White, bruises cannot be dated. It used to be thought that bruises progressed according to a color chart, and that you could tell the date of a bruise from its color. That is no longer valid science. You will hear that from Dr. Sperry, and I imagine you will hear that from Dr. Verisov, who's the medical examiner in this case. However, that story was perpetuated, and it too reached the ears of the witnesses, the family. The conclusion was exactly what Ms. Young said here today. Oh, she's been beating her every day of her life. The truth of the matter is that those bruises were acquired on November 17th, when Jennifer tried to save this child's life. It is outrageous to suggest otherwise. You will hear she had that extensive bruising on November 17th. Again, what you will not hear is as important. She did not have that bruising on November 16th. She did not have that bruising on November 15th. She did not have that bruising on November 14th. And the reason was it all happened on November 17th. And the reason for that is that it was caused, bruising was caused essentially by Jennifer's efforts to save her while performing the Heimlich maneuver, pressing hard on her chest while trying to dislodge the chicken, blocking her throat, which she eventually did dislodge. Jennifer bent Laila over a sink to allow her to vomit and to try and force the chicken out. Unfortunately, she was just doing what she had seen done on TV. The result is that without intending to do so, Jennifer exerted pressure that went right through Laila's torso, lacerating her liver and tearing the pancreas in the process. But you will also hear that the Heimlich maneuver is known to do that, if not applied correctly. At some point, you're going to hear about the word intent, whether there was an intent to kill, an intent to harm. There will be no evidence of an intent to kill or to harm. It'll be up to you to decide whether Jennifer intended to kill Laila. You will hear her actions, you will hear her voice, you will hear her speak. As we believe the evidence will show, she accidentally caused the death in her haste and panic to revive and save her. And you will hear Dr. Sperry say, this child was not killed on November 17th. This child suffered injuries as a result of resuscitative efforts. You will hear from witnesses who were around these children. You will see photographs, and you will see that these children were not abused, not bruised, cut, or marked up. They were not kept hidden from the public. To the contrary, you will see and hear that Jennifer took these children everywhere with her. To the zoo, to school events, parades, opening of art centers. You will hear from these witnesses that Jennifer and the children were very close. You will hear that they hung on her and that she was very proud and happy to be taken care of them. There will be evidence that Millie was questioned over and over and over again. You will also hear about forensic interviewing. Forensic interviewing, when it comes to children, is the means by which you are supposed to interview children. You're not supposed to ask them questions. You're not supposed to let their mother ask them questions. You take them to a forensic interviewer, and that forensic interviewer is trained and asks non-leading questions, non-conclusory questions, and gets, hopefully, the truth as a result of that. You will hear about various 2 or 3 forensic interviews that this child had. And at no point did she give a statement saying that Jennifer or Joseph did anything, knew anything, said anything, nothing. She laughed when it was suggested that she might have been abused. She laughed when they talked about were you physically punished. You will hear that each time she told the interviewer, the caseworker, a medical professional, that she did not hear or see anything, and no one ever hurt her or her sister, except for Laila's father, Anthony Daniel, who touched her private parts. She was asked about bruises on her body, and those bruises were not pattern bruises, they were not belt marks, electric cord marks, but bruises you get from being active, rough and tumble 4-year-olds, and she said she got those from falling down while playing and while doing gymnastics. But that was not what they wanted to hear. So what did they do? They sent the child to therapist. She didn't say anything, sent her to another therapist. Meanwhile, she's living with her mother and her grandmother, great-grandmother, and then all of a sudden, the child started repeating things that she had heard. You will hear in this courtroom, the latest revision, you will hear that all through the time that she was asked, there were different stories. You will hear that the parents, she's now adopted, she and her 2 other sisters, Tessa had 2 children during the time these events were unfolding. Those 2 children and Millie are now placed, they're now adopted by Amanda Harrell. Millie is Millie Harrell at this point. You will hear what is the latest revision of history. She has grown, as she has grown older, her memory of being 4 years old has gotten clearer instead of fuzzier. You will hear that her adoptive mother was concerned that she was making stuff up. You will hear that her mother and her great-grandmother went to the doctor to try and find out why she lies so much. So keep that in mind when you listen to Millie and to what she has to say today. That she has been subjected to 3 forensic interviews, countless amounts of questioning and talk by her mother and great-grandmother. You will also hear that the therapists were concerned because she had been privy to inappropriate conversations by her mother and great-grandmother. You're not going to hear much about Joseph, because Joseph wasn't at home when Laila choked on the chicken. He was working the 2 jobs. He was not able to spend as much time with the girls as Jennifer did. He stayed with them when his wife had an exam, when his wife had to go to school, and when he was available. But often, the girls were asleep, playing with each other, or on the tablet when he was home from work. There will be no evidence that this man was aware of anything. And the reason why is nothing happened in that house until November 17th, when Jennifer tried to save that child's life. He did not know about any abuse because there was no abuse to know of. Even Millie said he was good to them. Yet he's here. Again, why is he here? Because the police and the district attorneys have rushed to judgment and figured if they charged him, he would be so terrified, he would testify against his wife. That's all they wanted. But that would require Joseph to lie. There will be no, I repeat, no evidence that he saw, should have seen, believed, should have believed that his wife was abusing the girls, and that's because she wasn't. The unavoidable truth of the matter is that accident happens, and that sometimes accidents cannot be prevented. You have well-meaning individuals who intend to save the child's life, administering the wrong kind of resuscitative efforts, and instead going through the pancreas and the liver in the efforts to revive this child. The law deals with accidents through the concept of intent. If there was no intent to cause harm, if there was no malice, there's no criminal responsibility. The evidence will show that Jennifer and Joseph's only intent was to provide a loving home for their 2 foster children, and that Jennifer's efforts to save Laila before and while on the phone with 911 resulted in a tragic accident that she will have to live with for the rest of her life. You will not see one iota of evidence that shows she ever intended to harm Laila, much less that she and Joseph abused her or her sister. You will hear plenty of evidence, on the other hand, that the Henry County Police and the District Attorney's Office saw this case as an opportunity to put a woman who had been a thorn in their side in her place, to poison the community's mind towards this couple and ruin their lives. Now they are placing their lives in your hands, trusting that you will live up to your oath. And I'm going to ask you to take their lives as seriously as you possibly can. Listen to the evidence. Listen to what the people say and question everything. That's why you're here. It's not a decided matter, much as the press would like to make it out to be. It's not a decided matter until you say it's a decided matter. You should listen to the evidence as it comes from the witness stand and from the exhibits, as the judge has told you. Not from the press, not from the newspaper, not from the TV. After you have done that, I will be back up here to ask you to return a verdict of not guilty on all counts, because a verdict is Latin for speaking the truth. And the truth of the matter in this case is that Jennifer tried to save that child's life on November 17th. Jennifer did everything she could to save that child's life. That is the truth. I thank you for keeping an open mind, and I thank you for your service to the cause of justice.
Okay, thank you, Small. Is the state ready to proceed with this first place?
Yes, Your Honor.
And call your witness.
State Prosecutor Jones.
That's Caleb Jones.
Kennedy.
Now, would you please swear, please?
Yes.
Just as soon as you're ready.
Sir, please raise your right hand. You swear from the testimony you're about to give the truth and the whole truth, so help you God. Thank you. You can lower your hand. I'm actually going to stand over here. Can you please spell your first and last name, sir?
It's Kenneth Jones, Kenneth Jones.
And sir, are you currently employed?
No, I'm retired
And how long have you been retired?
since 2016.
And what did you do prior to retirement?
I was a firefighter, EMT with Henry County.
And how long were you a firefighter and EMT on the Henry County?
I was around 29 years.
And can you just give me a little bit of your background, like your training that you had to have to be a firefighter and an EMT?
Hey everybody, if you could please help support the channel today, let's see if we can reach our goal. Let's see, I want to try to be able to do this whole trial, but we'll just have to see how it goes. All right, so thank you for watching, and back to the trial.
Well, just your basic firefighting training any fireman can go through.
And what all does that training include?
Well, basically, we're taught how to fight fire, and just doing rescue techniques, and then on the EMT side, doing basically just ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation. As far as basic goes, just basic medical skills.
Basic medical skills, and does that include, you said A, B, and C? Is that part of the training that you get for, let me ask you, were you trained in CPR?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And when you talk about ABC, is that when you're talking about CPR?
Well, that could pertain to that.
What, how many hours of training do you have in CPR?
I think it's a 40-hour research every year.
Every year? And what about the Heimlich maneuver? Were you trained in the Heimlich maneuver as part of your training for EMT?
Yes.
And is that the same 40-hour training, or is that a different training that you do?
It's all incorporated.
So So when you learn CPR, you also learn Heimlich maneuver?
Yes.
And over the course of your career, how many occasions have you had to administer CPR or the Heimlich maneuver?
No. God, I don't know. A lot.
With over 100, you think?
Oh, no, I'd say probably 25, 30 times.
Many of those times involve having to perform CPR or Heimlich on a child.
Now, I'm talking about CPR.
CPR, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'll kind of
Talking about the Heimlich, maybe 2 or 3 times, maybe.
2 or 3 times in the Heimlich. So I'm gonna back up on the CPR side, out of those 25 times, how many times did that involve a child?
Maybe 4 or 5.
And do you recall the situations that caused you to have to go perform CPR on the children on those 4 or 5 occasions?
I mean, like what caused it, what happened to them?
Yeah.
It could be anything from an automobile accident to some kind of trauma from, it's really hard to say, I can't remember.
Any, in the Heimlich maneuver, you said about 2 to 3 times?
Mhm.
About how many times did that involve a child?
Maybe 1.
And on that one occasion, were you able to, what are you trying to, I guess,
Clear the airway.
what are you trying to achieve when you perform a Heimlich maneuver?
Just clear the airway.
Okay. And were you able to clear the airway on that one time that you performed on a child?
Well, I really don't think there was anything there, but, we still had to, go through the motion of doing it.
And what was the result of that particular child? Did they have to go to the hospital? Did they survive the incident?
Yeah, they went to the hospital, but I don't remember the outcome.
And throughout your 20+ years as an EMT and firefighter, did you work a certain shift at all, or did it just vary?
It was 24 on, 48 off.
And I want to, were you on duty on November the 17th of 2015?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall what hours you were working on that particular day?
I mean,
all 24 hours?
It's 24 hours, yeah.
At some point in time, did you get a call to the location of 1521 Lincoln Terrace?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what time that call came in?
It was in the evening.
And I know it's been a while. If you had an opportunity to review the Henry County Fire Department report, would that help to refresh your recollection as to the time?
Since when?
If you looked at the report from that time, would it help you to refresh?
No, not lately, I haven't.
Okay. I'm asking if I show it to you now, would it help you to recall what time it was you received the call?
Yeah, I'm sure it
You
would.
know me, I approach?
Yeah.
Just look at that and tell me that as you recall. And without reading it after you're done, let me know if that helps.
Yes, it's around 6 o'clock. That sounds about right.
Thank you, sir. And what was the nature of that call?
It was a person choking, I believe.
Did you know the age of the person at that time that the call came in?
Yeah, I believe they said it was 2 years old.
And what do you do in preparation to go out to that call? If any?
I mean, once we get dispatched, we get in the truck, and go to the call, and on the way over there, we're thinking, well, what are we gonna need? And basically, we're on an engine, so we don't have everything that the ambulance has. So we've got a med bag, an AED, which is a defibrillator, and oxygen, and that's what we went into the house with.
And when you arrived to the house, do you recall how long it took you to get there?
So the call,
Yes.
it's on the report right there. It should have took more than 5, 7 minutes, 8 minutes maybe.
And when you arrived to that location, what do you do? First, let me ask you, are you alone or are you with anybody else?
No, me and Lieutenant. There's just 2 of us on the engine.
What's the lieutenant's name?
Brian Gibson.
And are you the driver or is Lieutenant Gibson the driver?
No, I'm the driver.
And you pull up to 1521 Lincoln Terrace,
Mhm.
and what do you do at that point?
Basically, come off the truck with our gear, let them know we're on the scene, and approach the house and find the patient.
And when you say let them know, you're talking about like radio?
On the
back to
radio, yeah.
Dispatch, okay. And when you arrive to the house, is the door open or closed?
I assume it's, I really don't remember. We didn't have any trouble getting in. So.
That was my question, were you able to make entry?
Yeah.
And when you got inside the house, can you tell me what you observed?
When we walked in, I remember seeing a child and her mother in the living room, and I believe she was attempting CPR.
Had you
Or
ever
had been.
had you ever been to that home before?
No,
Did you know the person that you described as the mother? Did you know that person at all?
no.
Do you see that person sitting in the courtroom today?
I believe that's her over there.
And if you could just describe the color of clothing that she has on that you indicated.
I'm sorry.
Can you describe what that person is wearing that you indicate you believe is the person you saw?
That day?
No, what they're wearing right now.
What, green and white dress?
And that is the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum. Had you seen her prior to November the 17th of 2015?
I mean, just vaguely, everything happened so quick.
I'm asking, before going to the house that day, on November the 17th of 2015,
Yeah.
had you ever seen Jennifer Rosenbaum? Were you familiar with Jennifer Rosenbaum at all? And you said when you walked in the house, you saw the child. Where was the child?
Laying in the living room floor.
Do you remember if the child was dressed or undressed?
I won't say she had a diaper on, maybe a shirt. It's hard to remember because once we took her to the ambulance, then, of course we removed her shirt. If there was one on her, I just know there wasn't one once we got to working on her.
And so when you get inside the house, you said when you entered in, it appeared that the defendant, Ms. Rosenbaum, was standing over the child.
And she was right there with her. So.
Is the child laying on the couch, on the table, on the floor?
On the
If you
floor.
can recall.
She was in the floor.
On the floor. And you can recall, was Ms. Rosenbaum standing up? Was she kneeling down? Was she sitting down?
I think she had gotten up when we were there.
So was she actively doing CPR when you, to your recollection, when you came?
I didn't actually see her doing compressions and all that, but I remember seeing she was right there with the child.
But you didn't see her actively doing compressions?
No.
And once you come into the house, what do?
Well, basically, Brian, my partner, takes the child and he starts checking for an airway obstruction because that's what the call come out as, choking on a piece of food. And he's trying to clear the airway. And basically, I believe Rescue 13 called out on the scene when they did. We didn't even have time to break her bags up, and he just grabbed her up and we took off to the truck with her.
Did you ever have any conversation with the defendant, Ms. Rosenbaum, when you got into the house?
No.
Did she say anything to you that you can recall at all?
No.
And you said that Lieutenant Gibson began to check the victim's airway. To your knowledge, was there any obstruction found by him?
I'm not done worrying. No.
Did you see any vomit or any food particles around the child when you were there?
No.
And you said you barely got able to open up your equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever at that point touch the child or do anything to her?
In the house?
Inside the house?
No, Brian had her.
Okay. Did you observe her when Lieutenant Gibson had her?
Yes.
What did you observe at that time?
She was unresponsive.
When you say unresponsive?
Unconscious.
Was she breathing?
We wasn't sure. We were assuming that she wasn't. So,
And did you check for a pulse?
I believe Brian did.
Do you know whether or not there was a pulse?
I don't think there was.
No, I would object to him testifying to what he thinks, he testifies to what he knows or doesn't know. He doesn't know. He needs to say he doesn't know.
All right, the same objection. That is under speculation.
Yes, sir. I'm the one. How long were you inside the house once you arrived? Let me back up. You said that Lieutenant Gibson checked for her on the airway.
Mm-hmm.
And what else did he do while you were inside the house that you observed?
Well, he would have been checking for a pulse, checking the airway. But he was the one doing it, not me. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you, yes, she did have one or she didn't have one, because he was the one with his hands on her. I'm standing there observing. So
you observed him checking for an airway, checking for a pulse. Did you observe him doing anything else?
no, by that time we were going, while this was happening in motion.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's happening full speed, not question by question as I'm asking.
Yeah.
I understand. Do you recall if you did anything else? Inside
Inside the house?
Yes, sir.
No.
At some point, do y'all leave outside the house?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
We're going straight out the front door, going to the ambulance.
And what happens when you get inside the ambulance?
Well, we put her on the stretcher, and the paramedics on the ambulance is there, and his partner, which is basically the same qualified as I am, and we just start I start compressions on her, doing CPR, and I believe Brian or either Scott, the other paramedic, were getting ready to get the airway intubated.
He believes that's what happened. Again, that's speculation. He believes that's what was happening.
This was.
I would just ask you whatever you recall. If you don't recall
Yeah.
something, you can say you don't know.
Okay.
That's fine. Don't want you to speculate.
Well, one of the two guys were getting an airway established on the child, and I was doing compressions
And when you say you were doing compressions, what area of the body are you doing compressions on?
in the chest area,
Okay.
between the nipple line, in between the nipple to nipple.
And are you using one hand, both hands? What are you using to do your compressions with?
I'm using one hand.
And with CPR, is it just compressions that you do? Is it, tell me how CPR works.
Well, we're doing compressions. It's on a child. It's like 30 compressions to 2 breaths. So I'm doing compressions on them. They're breathing her.
And you said they're breathing her. Who's breathing her?
I don't remember if it was Scott or Brian. One of them was there giving her oxygen, giving her breaths.
At no point did you have to do a breath?
No, like I said, I was just doing compressions
And about how long did you do compressions?
all the way to the hospital.
During the time that you were in the ambulance, did you have an opportunity to observe anything else about the child?
Well, I mean, she was in full view of him. So,
What
yeah, I
did you
mean,
observe at that time?
well, I mean, she had bruises on her. That was probably the main thing that stood out.
Do you recall where you observed those bruises?
Yeah, there were some down around her diaper, top of her diaper line, on her wrists, her arms, legs.
Anywhere else did you see any bruises on her?
Yeah, they were on her back too.
During the time that you were in the ambulance and you were applying compressions, to your knowledge, did this child ever vomit or any food or any obstruction come out of her throat?
I didn't see it.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 1 and previously shown to the defense counsel. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
And what is that?
bruising on her back,
And is that the child in the way you saw her on the November?
pretty much.
And is that fair and accurate depiction of what you observed?
Yes.
I ask the State's Exhibit number 1 be entered into evidence.
Any objection? Case one is there.
And may I publish your judge?
You may.
And you may have to turn around, Mr. Jones. In any cases in which you've had to administer CPR on a child, have you seen bruises like that before?
Never.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross.
Mr. Jones, check the drains of that kitchen drains?
Did I check the drains?
Yes.
No, I'm not a plumber.
You didn't check the floor either, did you?
What area?
The area in the kitchen area.
No.
You testified here today that you did not see her doing compressions, that she had gotten up by the time you had gotten there.
Well, I just remember my partner saying that, I believe he said she told him that she was doing compressions, but she was there by the child.
Isn't it true, Mr. Jones, that you wrote a statement about this case?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that true?
I believe I sent one in.
And isn't it true in your statement, you said you saw the mother over the child performing CPR?
Yeah.
That's what you said, back in November of 2015.
Okay.
Is that correct?
If that's what I wrote down, that's what I said.
Let me refer to you.
You may.
Yeah.
That's what you said, is that you saw her doing compressions on the child.
Well, I saw her over her.
What did you say in your report?
Yeah, I said I saw her saw the mother over the child performing CPR in the living room floor.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Any agree?
None, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. Step down. And, any objections with this being excused?
None for the same, Your Honor.
Any objections with this being excused?
No objection, I'm just asking for.
Am I permanently,
Pardon me?
The picture is not be projected on the.
Okay.
am I permanently excused?
Mr. Jones, you're excused. You consider your release in the case.
All right.
Let's take a call, next witness. Ms. Ball. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've been informed that the next witness is fairly lengthy. And so what we're going to do now is take our afternoon break, and we're going to come back at 25 minutes to 4 o'clock. So right now it's about Okay, there are a couple of things that come up. First is, I want to remind any members of the press who are here that they're pursuant to Rule 22, the order that was issued, that there is to be no use of recording devices while the judge is outside the courtroom. Agrees, except as provided in paragraph E of this rule, a person may use a recording device in the courtroom only when the judge is in the courtroom, and the use of a recording device must terminate when the judge leaves the courtroom. I just want to be sure that everybody is abiding by that prohibition that's contained within the rule, because it's been brought to my attention there was some concern about whether or not that was being followed. Is everybody abiding by that?
Oh, we understand that too.
Okay, you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And you can turn it off when I leave the courtroom.
Yes, sir. Well, I actually just turned the camera back over here when we took a break, because we are streaming, and so I didn't want them to think, when I cut my camera off, it messes up our stream, so I turned it towards this over here,
So
away from the well of the court. And there's no audio during that time.
there's no audio and it's turned where?
Just like this right now. It's just showing that part of the courtroom where just the bench is not up there anywhere at the well of the court.
I can't see what you're.
I'm sorry, it's so small. But my picture would encompass like this to back over there. The first row over here to back over
It's
there.
not showing any person.
No, sir. Not anywhere up here.
It's not showing any person, and it's not picking up any audio,
No, sir.
and so it's effectively terminated. I believe that to be substantial compliance with the rule, and find that to be acceptable. All right.
Okay. Right.
That's number one. Number two, there's been concern raised about a juror in the front row on the left, who, according to the state, may not be paying attention. Is that what I heard?
Yes, that was a concern from the state that one of the jurors on the front row is not paying attention and has significant portions of hearing basically.
Well, I've noticed that his eyes have been closed and his head's been turned down. Apparently, some people listen differently than others, so he's small.
My concern with that is just that Ms. Young stated that I can see Ms. Young stating at the bench conference that he had to be woken up to notice that the jury had left, that he was still sleeping when the jury got up to leave. So that suggests that he was sleeping during.
That assumes two things, right? First, that he's sleeping, and second, that he had to be woken up. And the evidence of that comes from who?
Your Honor, that was my observation. When we took a break, although the jurors had exited, he was still sitting there with his eyes closed. I motioned to the deputy to make him aware that we were on a break. I can't speak if the deputy woke him up or touched him, but he clearly appeared to not know that we were done with court and still remained here, which made me believe he was asleep.
Okay, so that's your conclusion. And I guess I should inquire the deputy. Was that your opinion as well?
Yes, I got almost to him and he said,
Okay. What is it that the parties are requesting that I do?
Your Honor, I would first ask that maybe we speak with him and let him know the urgency and importance of him being awake and paying attention, because this is a very important case and he needs to be paying attention throughout the course of the trial. If it continues to happen, the state's preference would be to remove him and have an alternate replace him that can pay attention to each and every witness that comes forward.
Okay, so you are taking the position right now that whatever damage has been done by his sleeping is something that we can overlook, and that we can just warn him and move on. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, I think so. There's been one witness that's testified so far, Your Honor. I don't, because I was questioning that witness, I don't know if he was paying attention. I would just ask that the court inquire of him, and if he's been able to keep up and understand what's going on so far, and if he would be able to do so in the duration of the trial, initially, would be my request.
Ms. Ball?
You know, I think for the court for anyone's communication, I'm concerned that he's not listening and he's asleep. I don't know that we can overlook the fact that he has missed the first witness.
Okay, let's have him come out. Is it the jury box, please? Yes. We know the name of this juror. It's going to 7th seat.
Mr. Tyrone Cassidy.
Mr. Gapp, second coming to jury box, please. Right there, please, just have a seat. Are you juror number 60? Yes, sir. Okay. Sir, there has been a concern raised that you are sleeping during court. Is that correct?
I don't think I'm sleeping, I just had a hand on my head.
Okay. And there was a concern raised that you had to be awoken in order to leave the jury box. Is that true?
No, I was already woke up, just sitting there.
Well, there is, obviously, this is an extremely important case. Frankly, any case that we're trying is an important case. And we're going to need you to be paying attention. You understand? Yes or no? Okay. Thank you. Please step back into the jury. Okay, so the juror is denied being asleep, and he's denied the need to be awoken. Is there anything that either of the parties are requesting that I do?
Not at this time, no, he's denying it. But as an officer of the court, I know what I observed, but he's denying on the record. So, Your Honor, I would just say you can just pay close attention to him throughout the rest of the trial.
All right, then we'll go ahead and ask the court to proceed.
Yes.
Then let's go ahead and have the jury come back out to the jury box. All right. The state calls next witness.
State calls Dyatlov Cleveland. So you swear or affirm this testimony you shall give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did.
So hand down, please take your correct hand for the record.
All right, Donald Cleveland, Henry County Coroner.
And you mentioned you're the Heimlich County coroner. What exactly does that mean?
The coroner is responsible for determining, working along with the police rather, to determine the cause and manner of death. But I have to report cases to the medical examiner's office to seek further guidance on whether an exam is going to be performed or not.
Okay. You also mentioned the term medical examiner. What is a medical examiner?
Medical examiner is a certified medical doctor, board certified rather, pathologist.
And so what is the difference between the county coroner and the medical examiner?
Basically, you could sum it up that I'm the eyes and ears for the medical examiner until the body gets in their possession.
And does every county in the state of Georgia have a medical examiner?
All except 4 of them.
Okay. And why don't the
Oh, excuse me, all counties have medical examiner?
I'm sorry, all counties have a coroner.
All except 4 of them.
And why did the 4 of those counties not have a coroner?
Because they have a medical examiner system where their counties are so large that they chose to abolish the office and go forward with the medical examiner.
The medical examiner that you provide cases for, who was the medical examiner with? What agency?
Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
And do you routinely work or send cases to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation?
Yes.
Are all of the cases, though, that you respond to, all of them go to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation?
No.
What makes that determination as to a case that goes there versus one that does not?
Depending on medical history of the person, and the law says anybody, I believe, under the age of 7 is required to have an autopsy.
So if a child is 2 years of age, the law requires them to have an autopsy?
Yes, or the medical examiner, if the child has was born with some kind of genetic issues, then the medical examiner can override that and say, we're not going to be doing an exam.
What are some of the qualifications to become the coroner in a county?
The state just basically says you have to be 25 years or older, live in the county in which you're going to serve for at least 2 years prior to running, be a U.S. citizen, be a registered voter, and have a high school diploma or GED.
Is there any medical training that is required to be a coroner?
No.
Can you tell me how long you have been the coroner here in Henry County?
I've been doing this full-time since 2010, and prior to that I was part-time deputy coroner for 2 years.
And what kind of work did you do prior to becoming coroner?
I was a funeral director and embalmer.
Is the coroner an elected position?
It is.
And when were you said you were appointed in 2010?
Yes.
How have you remained the coroner since then?
In 2012, I believe, was election year, and 2016 was election year, and both times I prevailed.
And is there any training that's associated with being a medical, county coroner?
We have to attend 24 hours a year training at the Georgia Public Safety Training Center.
On average, since you've been the Henry County coroner, how many cases do you see per year?
Over 300.
And without being flip, are all of these people by definition deceased?
Yes,
So you were not called out unless someone is deceased. Is that
that
correct?
is correct.
Have you ever responded to cases where a child has been a juvenile, or excuse me, the decedent has been a juvenile?
Yes.
And do you see as many of those as you do adult cases?
No.
Did you respond to the death of Laila Daniel?
I did.
And was that on November 17th of 2015?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury how you first became involved in this particular case?
I was notified by the Henry County 911 Center. They had received a call from the nursing supervisor at the hospital stating that they had had a child to come in deceased, and was notifying me of that. And so I instructed the nurse to secure the room, and I would be en route to the hospital.
And you instructed them to secure the room. Why do you do that?
To preserve any kind of evidence that might be there. And that's really, if I go up there for a gunshot victim of a 90-year-old or whether it be a child, I mean, it's just protocol.
Were you given any history or any reason as to how the child ended up at the emergency room?
The nurse told me the child came in via ambulance.
You don't object to what the nurse told you, that's hearsay?
In this case, I don't believe. I think it's not hearsay. We're not arguing for the truth of the matter asserted. It's simply to further his investigation as to why he responded and how he did, or why he did what he did.
Closing of your objection. Closing of your objection. Overruled.
The nurse instructed me that the child came in via Henry County ambulance and was pronounced deceased, and that the child, it was reported that the child was choking, and that's the reason that EMS responded.
When you arrived at the hospital, what did you observe?
When I got to the hospital, there was a deputy standing guard at the room, and I proceeded to make my way to the nurse's station and met with the nursing supervisor who called me, and then she escorted me to the room.
And when you went into the room, what did you see?
There was a decedent child lying on the bed, covered with a sheet.
And did you, what did you do after you first walked into the room?
I put rubber gloves on to work with the crime scene technician to take photos of the child.
And what were your initial observations when you saw the child's body?
Initial observations was, wow, there was markings all over the child.
Have you, as the county coroner, ever responded to other situations in which resuscitative methods were used?
Yes.
Have you, and I want to be a little bit more specific, have you responded to other cases where CPR was used?
Yes.
To attempt to resuscitate?
Right.
Have you also responded to in situations where the Heimlich maneuver was attempted?
No.
Okay. In the situations that you observed the CPR, was what you saw in Laila Daniel's body consistent with anything you had seen?
Yes.
What was consistent?
There was a airway in place that was secured by a strap around the neck. She had a bandage over her right leg that, and on the left leg, she had what's called an IO, which is an interosseous, which is basically a mechanical method of putting it into the bone so that when they issue drugs, it goes into the body very quickly to for the resuscitative purpose.
I want to back up. You had said that you had seen bruising on Laila's body. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Was the bruising that you saw consistent with other cases that you responded to where resuscitative methods had been used?
No.
Anywhere close?
No.
I want to show you what's been previously marked as States Exhibits 2 through 75, which has previously been shown in defense. And sir, have you had an opportunity to look through those exhibits?
I have.
And what are those? What are exhibits 2 through 75?
Those are exhibits of the child lying in the hospital room, the photographs taken.
Were you present when these photographs were taken?
I was.
Were you assisting in taking these photographs?
Yes.
And do these photographs fairly and accurately represent the condition that you saw the body on November 17th, 2015?
It does.
Your Honor, at this time I would move to admit States Exhibits 2 through 75 in the evidence.
Well, at this time, we would object to 2 through 75. I think we got some indicative pictures.
If there's a specific, there are many pictures in there, in fact 74, but some of them may be of the same part of the body, one of which is with is without the measuring device, and the other is with the measuring device as well.
This is my question.
Yes.
Does every picture depict something new or different?
Yes, with the exception of sometimes there's a measuring device and sometimes there is not. I can do what
What we're trying to stay away from is cumulative evidence.
I understand.
And so, you wish to look at this? You've looked at them?
Yes.
And do you disagree that they are each of something different?
I don't think they're each of something different, no. Some of them are repetitive.
Okay, I'm going to have you think on that one, not as a group exhibit.
Okay. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 2?
Yes,
What do you recognize State's Exhibit 2 today?
that was the child lying on the hospital bed when I walked in the room and removed the sheet.
Okay. And does that fairly accurately represent the way you observed a child in the first walk-in?
It is.
You don't have time to do State's Exhibit 2.
Admitted?
And what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 2?
You're looking at a deceased child lying there on the hospital bed with the resuscitative measures in her mouth, specifically in airway. We have 2 EKG pads, and there's a AED pad on the upper right side of the child. And then on the legs there, you have the bandage, and then on the right, on the left leg, the pink color is that interosseous, the IO.
Okay. And there's actually a pointer in there if you want to point to some of the things that you just talked about. What are the items that you just spoke about?
Right there is the airway that is used for resuscitative efforts. This right here is a Velcro piece that is used to hold the airway in place. Right there is the AED pad attached. Here are the EKG pads. Here, right here is the bandage covered leg. And there is the talking process.
Okay. And is this kind of an overview picture that you take at the very beginning?
Yes.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 3. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 3?
Yes.
What do you recognize State's Exhibit 3 today?
That is another overall shot, but this one shows more of the pediatric AED pad on it.
Okay. And is this image closer than the initial overview you've already taken?
It is.
And does this fairly accurately represent what you saw Laila Dana on that day?
Yes.
Can I move to State's Exhibit 3?
Judges said 603, can you think it's the same picture?
Admitted?
So what are the things that we see here in this particular image?
Again, here's a more definitive view of the AED pad, and then again, the airway, the EKG pads.
Okay. And earlier you mentioned bruising. Do you see any examples of bruising in this particular image?
I do. I see some right there. I see some here, and some there, and I see some over here.
And does the glare make it a little difficult to see some of those?
Yes.
I want to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 5. What do you recognize State's 5 to be?
This is a more definitive up-close shot of the placement of the airway.
Okay. And does this fairly accurately represent the way you saw Laila Dana that day?
Yes.
You don't have time to move to State's 5.
Admitted? It's fine.
And what are we looking at here?
A more up-close shot of the airway, and then there's some mucus right there.
Okay. I want to show you State's 6. What do you recognize State's 6 to be?
This is going to be the right side photo of her lying on the bed, of the facial area.
It's fairly accurately represents Laila Dana on that
Yes.
day? You don't have to move to State 6.
State 6 is admitted.
And what are we looking at in State 6?
Right here, we're looking again at the airway tube placement, and then the pediatric AED pad, and then we have some bruising going on right there.
And what part of the body are you referring to when you say, when you were pointing to some bruising that you observed?
That's going to be more so on the upper left side of the chest area.
And am I accurate when I say it this way?
Yes.
That's kind of almost near my shoulder?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you State 7. What do you recognize State 7 to be?
This is going to be the left side of the child.
Okay. And is this fairly accurately represent Laila Daniel?
It does.
You don't have to admit State 7.
State 7 is admitted.
And what are we looking at on this picture?
The opposite side of the picture showing the placement of the airway tube.
Okay. And in this particular photo, do you see any, can you start to see any injury in the head area?
Not right off, I can't because of the glare.
Okay. We've got some other photos. Stage 9. What do you recognize Stage 9 to be?
This is a facial shot of the left side of her face.
Okay. And this fairly accurately represents what you saw that day?
It does.
I moved to mid Stage 9.
Admitted States 19.
What are we looking at here?
Here, again, some mucus there, and there were some markings here that were scales placed to get a definitive measurement of it.
Now, when you take these photographs, are you documenting just everything that you see?
Yes,
So you're not going to say every single marking is used.
that is correct.
But at this point, you're just documenting everything you see?
So that I can report it to the medical examiner.
Okay. And so is this something that you thought was worth documenting?
Yes.
So I'm going to show you states 10. What do you recognize states 10 today?
That would be a Photoshop of underneath the neck of the child.
And does fairly accurately represent that area of the body that you observed on November 17th?
It does.
You want to move to states 10?
Admitted States 10.
If I can, I might turn off another light and might glare a little bit better.
What's wrong with it? His lights? They're on.
I just need the one above marking. Is that better? We'll go back. What are we observing on states 10?
Right here, since we've already had so many different shots of the airway, we're focused more on the markings here on the neck.
Is that what part of the face is looking at there?
That will be right underneath the area of the chin.
Okay, so underneath the chin. So kind of the bottom pointing, correct? That's what helps. Kind of down here.
Yes, kind of down here.
What are we looking at in? Skip that. We'll just say 12.
The front part of her head. Forehead.
And this fairly accurately represents what you saw on that day?
It is.
I moved to mid states 12.
States 12 is admitted.
What are we looking at in states 12?
We were just notating the markings here.
What are we looking at in states 13?
Basically the same thing as that one, but it has the scale there.
And what are we looking at in states 14?
Here we have scale and some markings on the face that are not the same as those markings.
You want to move to mid states 13?
It puts you for here.
And is this just the one we see, that same mark that we were just looking at with the scale?
Yes.
All right. How about states 14? You said that these were different marks?
Yes, we have one there and one there.
And again, you're just kind of documenting everything?
Yes, sir.
I want to show you what's been marked at states 15, 16, 17, and 18. What do you recognize these today?
These are pictures of the child's eyes, left and right.
Okay. Did they fairly accurately represent what you saw that day? They do. And I moved to mid states 15, 16, 17, and 18. And why do you
16, 17, and 18.
Thank you, Judge. And why do you specifically look at the eyes?
We look for any types of pinpoint hemorrhages that would be sort of red in color. They are called petechial hemorrhages, and basically it is a indication that there could be some type of asphyxiation around the death of the person.
What do you mean by the term asphyxiation?
Strangulation, asphyxiation, going up behind somebody, choking them.
Okay. And I'm just going to go through states 15 through 18. Did you see any signs of that?
No.
No. Okay. I want to show you what's been marked in states 19, 20, and 21. Do you recognize these exhibits?
I do.
What do you recognize them today?
Pictures of her ear. Appears to be her left ear.
Okay. And they fairly accurately represent what you saw in that picture then?
Yes.
You want to use the states 19 through 21?
No, I think those are the same pictures. As the court reviewed.
You know, the state response is that the different views of that particular injury are important for the jury to be able to see.
States 19, 20, and 21 are good.
Thank you. What are we looking at in States Exhibit 19?
Taking notation of the markings on the ear here.
And what when you say marking, what do you mean by that?
There's some discolorations there, and we're just notating that for the file so that again I can report it to the medical examiner.
States 20.
Same thing, but this time it's with the scale.
And how about States 21? What are we looking at here?
A different view of it, of the markings there.
Okay. And by markings, what kind of markings would have
Discolorations.
States Exhibit 22. What are we looking at States Exhibit 22?
Ears of the ear again. And it looks to be based upon this, looks to be the left ear.
Okay. And is this fair and accurate representation?
It does.
Okay, you're not moving to stage 22.
Okay. Admitted stage 22.
What are we looking at stage 22?
Just for more, I think she tried to get more of a scale picture there, but it looks like it's blurred. There's some markings right there on the inside of the ear.
What are those markings consistent with anything?
They're just discolorations.
I want to show you states 25. We recognize states 25 and 26 with it.
This looks to be this scalp of the child, and there are some markings there that were documented.
Did it very accurately represent what you saw that day?
It does.
You're not moving to admit states 25 and 26.
Stage 25, 26 are in.
And what are we looking at in stage 25?
There's some markings here and there.
And what part of the body are we looking at here?
Again, from those pictures, it looks like to be in this area here.
So you are pointing to what area of your body?
I'm just around the scalp area here, the occipital region.
To the top of your head?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Right now. So it's more than that.
Show you what your marking states 27, 28, 27, 28, 29, and 31. Do you recognize these?
I do.
And what do you recognize in those states?
Photos of different discolorations on the body.
Do these fairly and accurately represent what you saw on November 17th?
It does.
If you want to move to admit states 27, 28, 29, and 31.
Admitted.
And what are we looking at? First of all, what part of the body are we looking at here?
That looks to be around the neck area on the left side of the below the left ear.
And what did you note of interest in this particular photograph?
The discolorations there. And I think that like this whole area here and in there.
How about states 28? What are we looking at in states 28?
A more close-up shot of those markings.
States 29.
Again, scale markings.
And states 31, what are we looking at in states 31? What part of the body, I should say?
That's going to be around the right side of the mid-chest area. You have your electrical defibrillator pad, and below it, we're documenting the markings here.
Okay. States 32 and 33, what do you recognize these two?
Photos taken of the left side here.
These fairly accurately represent what you saw on November 17th of 2015.
It does.
You're going to move to admit states 32 and 33.
Admitted 32 and 3.
What are we looking at? What part of the body are we looking at?
And we're looking in this area right here. And we have some bruising going on there and here.
Right, and just so the record's clear, when you say right here, what part of the body are you pointing to?
Left side.
Left side. What part of the chest are you pointing to?
Around the nipple area.
Was that above or in relation to the nipple? Where was the bruising that you saw?
It's up above it, probably, I don't have a scale there, so we'll just say a half inch, maybe. And then you have some bruising here, and then underneath the left arm there.
And when you have responded to other situations where CPR has been used, do you ever see bruising on the side of a part of the chest like that? No. State exhibit 33. What are we looking at? State exhibit 33.
Now look at that. There's ashy snow. Peace-loving freaks. How y'all all like them apples? Well, I think it's an avocado. It should be, how do you like them avocados? Anyways, thank you so much. There you go. Well, there you go. We can do another one.
Looking at markings of the bruising below the nipple line over on the left side, again, underneath the forearm.
So we're getting closer to the armpit, is that correct? All right. I want to show you what's been previously marked as states exhibit 34. What do you recognize states 34 to be?
The left side of her torso and her left arm.
Okay. Is that fairly accurately represent what you saw on November 17th of 2015?
It does.
You want to move to admit states 34.
Admitted states 34.
And what are we looking at in states 34?
We were notating some markings there, with more so the left arm, how there was discolorations on that arm.
I'm going to show you states 36, 37, 38, and 39. What do you recognize these to be?
Pictures of her right arm.
And they fairly accurately represent what you saw on November 17th, 2015.
They do.
You're not moved to admit those exhibits. That's fine. After discussion with the defense counsel, we will admit 36, 37, and 38.
Any objection to 36, 37, 38?
What are we looking at here in state 36?
Well, a couple of things. One, we want to make sure we got a picture of an armband, definitely identifying who we were there for. But you have some markings here and some markings up here.
Okay. And what arm are we looking at?
That is the right arm.
What are we looking at in states 37?
You were looking at the inside of the right hand when we were documenting bruising there.
And so what part of the body were you pointing to?
That would be right here.
So on the palm, correct?
On the right hand.
Right. What about states 38?
We were notating different markings on the right arm on the underside of it.
I neglected to ask you already about how long after Laila was pronounced dead were these photographs taken?
Approximately an hour and a half.
I'm going to show you this marks down here. It's 40, 42, 43, and 44. You recognize them?
I do.
What do you recognize them to be?
Pictures of her left hand.
Okay. They fairly accurately represent, they fairly accurately represent what you observed on that particular day. They did. You're not admit states 40, 42, 43, and 44 of evidence. Perfect. What are we looking at in states 40?
This blood stain right there.
Okay. In states 41, 42.
More blood stains, and that looks to be on the inside palm of the left hand.
Okay. Did you note any bruising on the inside palm of the left hand? If you needed to, I can show you the actual image itself.
Can I see the actual image?
Sure.
I'll pull that out. Everybody can see it there.
Okay.
Right here. What appears to be bruising.
What the heck? You guys are crazy. Thanks, Mama She 13. Amy Higg. Oh, and Mama She 13 again. Boom!
Family and Gray. Have a great day. Collision.
Happy hump day. All sorry I can't chat, but listening. Howdy Freak family and Gray. Have a great day. Well, you too, Amy. Thank you so much. And is this old firefighter guy really Santa Claus? I don't know who this guy is. He looks like a country singer or something.
Okay, continue on. Smiley face.
ZZ Top. Something.
Same general area as the other hand, you observe that same symbol.
Yes. Yeah. On the palm. Here.
States 43, what are we looking at?
Appears to be some blood stain there.
Okay. And again, just documenting everything you see.
Just documenting
States 44, what are we looking at?
the markings right there and with the scale.
I am going to show you as in previously marked with states exhibits 45, 46, 48, 50, and 51. Do you recognize these documents?
I do.
And what do you recognize those today?
Pictures of the abdominal area.
Do they fairly represent what you saw on that particular day?
They do.
All right, to admit states 45, 46, 48, 50, and 51. Forbidden. What are we seeing in states 45?
There's the navel, 2 EKG pads, markings there, and markings there. And there.
Do you also see any areas of discoloration in the skin?
Yeah, discoloration in the skin, yes, there and there.
How about any discolorations that would be lighter in color?
Lighter in
Yes.
color? Maybe this there, based upon lighting.
Okay. How about State's Exhibit 46? What are we looking at?
More discolorations there. It was next to the EKG pad.
So in State's 46, can you just help orient us what part of the body are we looking at here?
You were looking at the lower left abdominal.
Okay. And what part, like, I guess, what bone would that be near?
Your pelvic bone is going to be right there.
How about State's Exhibit 48? What are we looking at in State's 48?
You're looking at the right lower abdominal area, and again, pelvic bone being there, discolorations there, and then some type of skin slippage there,
What do you mean by skin slippage?
skin tear.
So that's not a bruise, that's something different.
That's something different, yes.
What are we looking at in State's 50?
That area there, and the some discolorations there, of course, with the scale.
And how about State's Exhibit 51? What are we looking at in State's Exhibit 51?
Let me see the sure. Get my bearings. It appears that is the right side of the child, a little further back, since the diaper is right there. And your pelvic bone is going to be about right in there.
And what are you pointing to? You were pointing, you were moving you're moving the pointer around some areas of the body. What were you pointing to?
The markings are there, and then of course the diaper, and then the scale.
One of them on the State's Exhibits 52, 53, 54, and 56. What are we looking at here?
You are looking at the genital area of the child.
Does it fairly accurately represent what you saw on that particular day?
It does.
Your Honor, I move to States 52, 53, 54, and 56. Through there. What are we looking at States 52?
We were taking the markings here, those have already been previously discussed, and so we're taking an overall picture of it.
And so this area that we're looking at is previously underneath the diaper?
Yes.
And you were pointing to areas, certain areas. What parts of the body were you pointing to?
Laila fold right there, and then the pubic area there.
And those are all areas that you observed bruising?
Yes.
States Exhibit 53. What are we looking at in States 53?
A more close area of the vaginal area on both sides.
In all the years that you've been in the corner, have you ever seen CPR-related injuries in the vaginal area?
No.
What about States Exhibit 54?
That is on the inside portion of the right leg.
And just so we orient the jury, to the right is the vagina?
Yes.
And you said that was the interior portion of the right leg?
Yes.
And what are we looking at here?
We were notating the discolorations there.
What about States Exhibit 56? What are we looking at States Exhibit 56?
The discolorations there.
Is that what? I guess what's the angle of this particular shot?
Standing over the child on the bed, rolling her leg toward me.
So are we looking at her from the backside at this point?
The picture was taken, yes, on the backside.
State 75. What are we looking at? State 75.
The rectal area.
That area accurately represents what you saw on that particular day?
Yes.
Your Honor, we do State 75.
Okay.
And what are we looking at in State 75?
We were notating the discolorations there.
I can move now, sorry.
Notating the discoloration.
Was there anything about the anus that stood out to you in particular?
No.
As the coroner, did you have any concerns about any dilated anus?
No.
Did you personally have any concerns about possible sexual abuse during your investigation?
No.
The shading has been previously marked as States Exhibits 57, 58, and 59. We're looking at these three exhibits.
We're looking at the lower legs, or the mid leg down.
That's fairly accurate to represent what you saw on that day?
Yes.
You're on average in states 57, 58, 59.
Okay.
Okay. And what are we looking at here in states exhibit 57?
All right, that's just an overall shot of the lower extremities, showing the bandage and the intraosseous, of course, along with the discolorations.
Okay. And I'll show you states exhibit 58, or some of those discolorations you previously saw.
Yes,
And state 59, is that just the discolorations with the markings?
that is correct.
Show you states exhibit 60. What do you recognize state 60 doing?
The backside of the lower extremities.
And is that fairly accurately represent what we saw on that day?
It does.
There have been any modifications, alterations, deletions, stuff like that?
No.
No, at this time, I moved with states exhibit 60 to evidence. Okay. Well, up here, I'll also have you authenticate state 61, 62, 64, and 65. Do you recognize those states exhibits?
Yes, those are pictures of the child's ankles.
Okay. Do you want to at this time I do states exhibit 61, 62, 64, and 65 as evidence? Okay. What are we looking at state 60?
That is the backside of the lower extremities of the child. So basically, you can describe it as we rolled the child over on her stomach and was taking a picture of the lower part. Notating again the discolorations.
And what are we looking at in state 61?
That is her left ankle.
And in state 62, what are we looking at? And I can bring it up to you if you need to do.
No, that's the left ankle, but it's more of the discoloration right here.
How about state 64?
That's the right foot ankle area, and again, notating the discolorations.
And state 65?
Same thing, but with the scale.
I'll show you marks of state 67, 68, 69, 70, 72, 73, and 74. Do you recognize these exhibits?
Yes, these are different photos of the backside of a child.
And did it fairly accurately represent what you saw on that particular day?
They did.
You know, I submit these states 67, 68, 69, 70, 72, and 73, and 74. Okay. Very good. What are we looking at in states 67?
That's the backside of the child, the whole back. And we were notating all the discolorations.
And have you ever responded to other child deaths?
You know what's weird is I was just thinking, like, the Rosenbaums are sitting here and, you know, they probably love each other, right? Like, he probably loves her, she loves him and everything, and they're just, you know, god-awful parents, nightmares. But they're sitting here thinking, man, we're probably going to lose this, and we're never going to see each other ever again. I mean, that part's kind of weird, right? Like, think about if you were with your spouse and you loved them, but you did something so awful that you know you'll never see them again. So this is kind of like your last moments together. It's crazy, right? Let's see.
You ever seen
I
anything
guess
like that?
weeks. In this
How about
case.
states exhibit 68?
More in close-up photo of all the markings.
States exhibit 69?
The lower portion of the back and the markings.
Yeah, maybe he is scared of her. I don't know.
What are we looking at in states exhibit 70?
I don't know
This
the
is the upper
people.
back
Maybe we'll find out.
and the markings there.
States exhibit 72?
Markings with the scale.
And what are we
Again, on the backside.
on the backside from where? 73.
Again, markings with the scale on the back, since there's the top of the black area.
And state 74.
Again, pictures on the backside.
Have you, in all the cases, whether adult or pediatric, have you ever seen anything like this when you went out resuscitated medicine?
No.
Now, are you aware, are you familiar with a child by the name of Millie Place? You also familiar
Yes.
with that child? Did you actually meet with Millie or examine Millie on November 17th, 2015?
No.
And why is that?
I don't mean to be funny, but she wasn't dead.
Let me ask you, did you ever interact with either Jennifer Rosenbaum or Joseph Rosenbaum on November 17th, 2015?
I, myself, along with 2 other personnel, went into the quiet room and met with them. And that's the first time I actually physically talked with her.
Okay. And when you walked in, what were your initial observations?
So it's a small room, and there was 4 to 5 people in there, and it was hot.
Did Ms. Rosenbaum say anything to you?
I introduced myself, and I asked her to tell me what transpired, and she proceeded to tell me that she found the child shaking in the high chair after she had come back from going and getting Billy ready, because I believe she was going to go, Ms. Rosenbaum was going to go to a commissioner's meeting.
You can speak up just a little for us.
I said, she said that she found Laila in the high chair shaking when she came back from getting Millie ready to go, Mrs. Rosenbaum was going to go to a board of commissioners meeting.
And what did she say that happened after she came back from getting Millie ready?
That she saw the child shaking in the high chair. She picked the child up, called 911, and performed CPR, and until the EMS arrived.
And that was the history that you received from Ms. Rosenbaum?
Yes, and that she was possibly choking on chicken nuggets.
Did that history appear to be consistent with the examination you did of Laila Daniel in the hospital that day?
Not really, no.
And why do you say that?
No, objection. He's not qualified as an expert in medicine.
I'm simply asking if it's consistent with the other, let me ask it this way. Is it consistent with other cases in which you've responded to with perhaps a similar history?
No.
Do you know either Jennifer Rosenbaum or Joseph Rosenbaum prior to that day?
No, I do not.
Have you ever heard of either of them prior to that day?
No.
Have you ever, let me ask you this, do you ever attend Board of Commissioners meetings?
I don't attend them personally, however, I do watch it on the internet.
Okay. Have you ever seen either Ms. Rosenbaum or Mr. Rosenbaum at any of the meetings that you watch on the internet?
Yes, Ms. Rosenbaum would come to the meetings, and during the public speaking session, she would get up and voice concerns.
And what were your thoughts when you saw Ms. Rosenbaum given those public concerns?
I applaud her, young age and tackling the county. So
And again, you're an elected official.
I am.
Tell me a little bit about the demeanor of Ms. Rosenbaum when you were meeting with her in that hospital room.
It was different than meeting with other child families, not of the same death, but just child in general. I didn't observe much emotion, like her eyes wasn't red or swollen like she had been crying. It's not to say she hadn't been, but I was just a little struck by that. And then during that time we were talking with her, Mr. Rosenbaum come in because if I remember correctly, I think he was at work.
Okay. And what did you observe when Mr. Rosenbaum came in?
He had the look on his face like, what has happened? Just because I'm sure it was a phone call.
Object to him speculating about what he's sure.
That's fine. Can you say what you, not speculate, just exactly what you observed?
I observed him come in and he sat down beside Ms. Rosenbaum.
Okay. To be fair, could the response that you saw from Ms. Rosenbaum could also be consistent with shock?
It could be, yes.
Now, what occurs after you were done with photographing the body? What happens to the body at that point?
At that time, the hospital was instructed to place the child downstairs in the morgue until I could notify the GBI and arrange an autopsy. And then once notification to the GBI was done, they tell me to have the child there on a particular day. And then I made arrangements for the child to be picked up at the hospital and transported to the GBI.
And more specifically, how did the child get from the hospital to the GBI? Do you personally take it or something?
No, a transportation company that I employ as the coroner transported her.
And is this the protocol that you use for all deaths where the GBI will be performing an autopsy?
Yes.
Do you recall the date that the body was released to the GBI?
November the 18th, I think.
That would have been the day after the death?
Yes.
Did you attend the autopsy in this case?
I did.
And do you attend all autopsies?
No,
Why did you attend this particular one?
because of the different bruising and the circumstances of surrounding things.
Now, when you attend the autopsy, are you actually participating?
I am not. I am standing away from the remains. The morgue technician, along with the pathologist, are around the remains.
So you're not actually performing any portion of the autopsy itself?
I'm not even touching the person.
Nothing further this time.
Okay, you still need the light on?
Sorry.
You still need the light on? Yes. The light?
Oh, yeah, no, we can turn this back on.
Small window.
My name is Grant Hughes. I just have a few questions for you. You don't have a medical degree, is that correct?
That is correct.
So you've got no medical training whatsoever.
That is correct.
And you have testified here today that you have seen other deaths from CPR,
Yes, ma'am.
or where CPR was applied.
Yes, ma'am.
And were those deaths where CPR was correctly applied?
What's your version of correctly?
Well, what I'm asking you is, do you know whether CPR was correctly applied in the case of Laila Daniel? Do you know that?
I can't. I wasn't there, so I cannot definitively
So
say
you don't
that.
know.
Yes, ma'am.
And the bodies that you had examined, that you said you had examined, who had been subjected to Heimlich maneuver, that was one child, is that correct?
No, I have never had. I said I've never seen anybody CPR done on somebody with a Heimlich maneuver.
Okay, well, let's be clear here. Those are two separate things. I don't know if you know that. One is the Heimlich maneuver. Do you know what the Heimlich maneuver is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what is that?
That is where you stand behind a person who is choking and you perform thrust into their abdominal area to try to dislodge the object.
And you have never seen the results of the Heimlich maneuver, have you? On a child.
On a child, no, ma'am.
And you have never seen the results of CPR on a child that was improperly done, where adult CPR was performed.
No, ma'am.
You've never seen that.
No,
So
ma'am.
your testimony here today that this case is dissimilar from your other cases would be understandable, wouldn't it?
You would have to form that opinion yourself.
But clearly, you have not seen prior to this date, you have not seen a Heimlich maneuver on a child, and you have not seen an improperly administered CPR on a child, have you?
No, ma'am, because I don't respond to the scenes when it's being performed.
And you told Mr. Chase that this did not look like a CPR case, like CPR cases that you would see, correct?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and the CPR cases that you have seen were not cases where adult CPR was applied on the child, were they?
That is correct.
And these cases were not Heimlich maneuver cases on the child, were they?
No, ma'am.
Now, you basically took those pictures that we saw just a moment ago, and you just document what you see, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you saw bruising going from the pubic area on up, correct?
I would say bruising from head to toe.
There's not consistent bruising all the way down. The child had bruises on her legs, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And had bruising on the back,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Now, did you, in fact, report to the, you said you were the eyes and ears of the medical examiner, correct?
Yes, yes.
Did you, in fact, report to the medical examiner?
I did. Not to, I'm going to be specific here, not to the medical examiner themselves, to one of the death investigative personnel that answered the phone.
Ms. Lovelace?
No, I called the GBI main number and reported.
With regards to, did you, in fact, tell GBI that Jennifer had told you they were seated at the table eating chicken tenders when the choking occurred?
That's what, yes.
And did you tell them that the child was flailing in her chair?
I don't recall flailing, I said shaking.
See if this refreshes your recollection.
Sure. Where you wanted me to focus, Ms. Mo?
We'll have it.
Okay. If it's there, then I probably did say yes, ma'am, but you gotta remember, I call in so many deaths. I can't tell you exactly
But this
verbiage.
was sorry, this one was different, right?
Any child that's different.
And you did report that she was flailing in the chair,
Yes, ma'am.
which could account
Flailing.
for some of the bruising on the arms, correct?
I don't have a medical degree, so you'd have to ask the doctor about that.
And you saw bruising inside the ear, as if something had stuck in the ear,
I wouldn't
correct?
call it bruising, I'd say discolorations.
Discolorations. Now, you were not concerned with the dilation of the anus. Why is that?
Because it wasn't reported to me that was part of the report that was given to the hospital.
Okay. But you were there documented.
That's just part of standard procedure.
But you yourself, based on your experience, were not concerned about the dilation.
That's correct.
And the reason you weren't concerned is because that's normal at death. A lot of times the anus will dilate.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Ms. Moore, please.
I want to show you, this mole referenced the abdominal area, so I just wanted to go back there real quick. She said that, I'm going to turn the lights off really briefly again. She mentioned bruising in the abdominal area, correct? Right. Do you see any bruising in the center part of the stomach area? As in, like, not on the side?
Like that area?
No, in the, come down, yeah, it's just above the diaper. Do you see any bruising in that kind of general area above you, right?
Just
that
area right there. That's it.
Okay. You don't see, so you see it on the side, but not on the center, correct?
That's great. I don't see anything right there.
You guys see. That was the other thing I had regarding the projector. The flailing in the chair comment that was written in the report, would that have been something that you, part of the history that you received from the defendant?
Yeah, yeah.
So that would have been
Shaking and flailing pretty much are the same.
But that would have been something that she told you out of her mouth, correct?
It possibly could have been, yes.
But we talked about before, you only respond when a person dies, correct?
Correct.
So it's safe to say you've never seen someone die from a Heimlich maneuver.
I've never seen somebody die from a Heimlich maneuver, no, sir.
And one last question, do you have any political vendettas against either defendant?
No, I don't know.
That's that right.
Yes, because isn't it true that when you met Miss Jennifer Rosenbaum at the hospital, she introduced herself, you said, oh, you're that Jennifer Rosenbaum, isn't that true?
Yes, ma'am.
If I can follow up on that briefly, can you tell me a little more about what you said, or what you meant by that?
Because she's the one that I've seen on the commissioners' meetings when I watch them on the internet, or over the internet, and noticed that she was the one coming up speaking during public comments.
Did you have any ill will at all towards Ms. Rosenbaum when you said that particular comment?
No.
Okay.
Ms. Moore, anything else? Okay, Ms. Cleveland, you can step down.
Am I permanently excused?
As part of your objection, you may be excused.
Thank you, Judge.
This is suitable document. We have another witness.
You do have other witnesses, Your Honor.
Well, generally, I like to keep the jurors in 9 to 5. So if we don't have a short witness, then we can just go ahead and take our break for this evening and then sit right back here at 9 o'clock.
I think the witnesses that we have on it now will be pretty much, so I would say it's probably good.
Okay. All right, that's what we're going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our break for this evening. We'll see you all back here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. When you come back tomorrow, just make your way into the courtroom, go directly into the jury holding room, and I'll thank you for your time and attention, and we'll see you tomorrow. British order. And if you bring those to the jury room at this time, if you'd like Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Sit ready to proceed.
Yes, sir.
All right, then, if you would please call your first witness.
City Hall's
Deborah
Deborah McNair.
McNair. Raise your hand, please. You do swear your witness.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. McNair, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Please proceed. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. McNair.
Good morning.
How are you currently employed?
As a nurse practitioner
And how long have you been a nurse practitioner?
for over 15 years.
And where are you employed at this time?
Piedmont Wall Street Urgent Care.
Now, in November, specifically November 17 of 2015, were you working at Piedmont Henry Hospital?
Yes.
And what were your duties there?
My duties there were to evaluate and treat patients that presented to the emergency room.
And other than treating patients in the emergency room, did you work in any other locations at that hospital at the time?
Not at that time.
And does Piedmont Henry Hospital treat both adults and children?
Yes.
Primarily, what types of patients do you see, adults or children?
Typically at urgent care or the emergency room, you would see either or both.
Now, on November 17 of 2015, did you assess a patient by the name of Millie Place?
Yes.
And did you document your assessment and treatment of Millie Place in a note?
Yes.
And is that a requirement of your job to document whenever you see a patient?
Yes.
And is part of your job to document any findings you might have in regards to the patient?
Yes.
And at this time, I tender States Exhibit 76, which is a self-authenticating record of Millie Place's Henry Piedmont medical records.
Admitted.
Thank you, Judge. Now, who requested that you assess Millie?
The individual who actually approached me personally was the charge nurse.
The charge nurse. Okay. And who was the charge nurse?
I don't remember.
Okay, that's fine.
It's been a few years.
That's fine. So you were approached by the charge nurse. And what was your understanding of why you were to assess Millie?
The way it was presented to me, the charge nurse stated that Millie was being brought in by DFACS, Child Protective Services, requesting that Millie be evaluated due to circumstances with a sibling.
And in your profession, what does it mean to assess a patient?
Typically, when you assess a patient, you get a chief complaint, history of present illness, you go down a review of systems, you ask questions, you do a physical evaluation, you order tests that you think might be necessary.
When you say review of systems, what does that mean?
It's typically questions just trying to clarify the chief complaint and history.
And when you, were there any other professionals assisting you with the assessment of Millie Place?
I do not recall that there was anyone in the room with me assisting me when I evaluated Millie.
So at the time that you evaluated Millie, it was just you and Millie in the room?
The DFACS worker that brought her was in the room.
Okay. And at the time, or at any time before assessing Millie Place, did you have any other information regarding Millie's sibling that you were told was at the ER?
Very limited. I was made aware that there was a child on the main, what we call the main side of the ER, where the more acutely, the more seriously ill patients are usually evaluated. I was just told that there was a child there who was in very serious condition.
And at any time before assessing Millie, did you ever treat or observe Millie's sibling?
No, ma'am.
And where in the hospital did the assessment of Millie take place?
In one of the exam rooms on what is referred to as the minor emergency area, where we would typically assess patients that were triaged by the triage nurse as being less acute, less serious injuries, problems.
Now, is the history or reason why a patient is at the ER important for you when treating that patient?
Yes.
And how come?
Because the reason why a patient comes in determines most likely what the nature of the problem is going to be.
And is the way in which an injury occurred to a child or a person when they come into the ER, is that important for you to know when treating a patient?
It's very helpful, yes.
And why is that helpful?
Well, mechanism of injury does, to a certain degree, raise your concern for what type of injuries might be present.
And is a patient's description of pain and the location of pain important for you to know when treating the patient?
At least to a certain degree, yes.
And why is that?
Well, it does help you to figure out which part of the body you need to pay attention to and evaluate, yes.
And when you assessed Millie, what was her demeanor during that examination?
She was calm. She was relatively quiet.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Ms. McNair, I'm going to show you what I've previously marked as States Exhibit 77 and ask if you recognize this photograph.
Yes.
And how do you recognize it?
That is Miss Millie Place.
And is that how Miss Millie Place appeared on November 17, 2015 when you assessed her at the ER?
Yes.
This time, Your Honor, I tender States Exhibit 77 into evidence and ask permission to publish.
77 is a bit big.
Thank you, Your Honor. 77 on the overhead, and this is, you indicated this was Millie's place and how she appeared on November 17, 2015?
Yes.
And in this photograph, is she lying on the bed, so to speak?
Looking at the picture, yes.
Now, during your examination of Millie, what, if anything, did you observe and document regarding Millie's left elbow?
She had bruising that I recollect, and she moved it well, but she did complain of some pain with movement.
What did she say about the pain?
I don't recollect, she said.
When looking at the medical records, assist you in remembering what she said?
Possibly.
May I approach the witness, sir?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as States Exhibit 76, and if you can just look at page 3, see if that reminds you of what she said, and if it does, let me know, sir.
It states that the patient complained of left elbow pain, quote unquote, in the middle when she moves the joint.
May I approach the witness, sir? I'll show you, Ms. McNair, what I previously identified as States Exhibit 78. See if you recognize the exhibit.
Yes,
And how do you recognize it?
as the elbow of Millie.
And is that how the elbow, Millie's left elbow appeared when you assessed her on November 17, 2015 at Piedmont Hospital?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
This time I tender States Exhibit 78 into evidence and ask for permission to publish.
78 submitted to me, published.
And were you the individual taking the photographs?
No, ma'am.
Do you recall who was the individual?
I was not present when those photographs were taken in the room. I had left the room at that point.
I put Exhibit 78 on the overhead, and that is how you recall Millie's left elbow appearing when you treated her?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
Was Millie able to tell you how she got the injury to her left elbow?
The best that I can recollect, I would ask her, and she said, I don't know, and it just happened.
Now, based on your observation of Millie's left elbow and her inability to tell you how she sustained the injury, as well as the complaint of pain, what, if anything, did you do next with regards to treatment of that elbow?
I ordered an x-ray.
And at some point, did you receive the results of that x-ray?
Yes.
Now, during your examination of Millie, what, if anything, did you observe and document regarding Millie's right hip?
She had a large area of bruising on her right hip.
And what did Millie tell you about how she sustained the injury to her right hip?
Again, she said she didn't know.
At any time, did Millie complain of injury to that right hip?
She did not voice it to me.
May I approach the witness, sir?
Yeah.
Ms. McNair, I'm going to show you what I've previously marked as States Exhibits 79 and 80 and see if you recognize these photographs.
I do.
And how do you recognize them?
I recognize the bruising as the bruising on Millie's hip.
I'm sorry, that was missed the last part.
I recognize the bruising as the bruising that was on Millie's hip.
And was that how the bruising on Millie's hip appeared on November 17 of 2015?
Yes.
At this time, I tender States 79 and 80 and ask for permission to publish.
79 and 80 are submitted, and you may publish.
Thank you. I'm on the overhead 79. And if you're looking at the photograph behind you, where is the injury where you see from that location?
It's on the right hip and what we would refer to as like the right sacroiliac or iliac crest area.
What is the iliac crest area?
That's the superior bone along the waist.
And now I'm on the overhead States Exhibit 80. And you tell us about this photograph.
That appears to be a photograph of the bruised area on Millie's hip and iliac crest.
And so that would be a close-up of what was observed briefly in State 79?
Yes.
Now, during your examination of Millie, what, if anything, did you observe and document regarding Millie's buttocks?
There was a rash.
And did Millie ever tell you how she believed she got that rash?
From what I recall, she said they were bug bites.
And were those that rash consistent with bug bites?
The way the rash looked, it would be possible, but it would be an odd area.
Was it also consistent with a rash?
Yes.
That area? And is it, based on your experience, is it common for children of Millie's age to get rashes in the buttocks area?
Not very common. It's common in children who haven't been toilet trained, children who have accidents frequently, perhaps even bedwetting, but not very, very common, no.
Can I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm going to show you, Ms. McNair, what I previously identified as State's Exhibit 81 and see if you recognize that photograph.
I do.
And what is it a photograph of?
It appears to be a photograph of the rash on Millie's buttocks.
And is that how the rash appeared on November 17, 2015 when you treated Millie?
Yes.
This time I tender State's Exhibit 81 into evidence and ask for permission to publish.
Admitted. 81, we publish.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. And the rash that you're speaking of is, if you could just identify what we're talking about.
Yes.
And where is it exactly?
On the buttocks.
And did Millie at any time complain about the rash?
She did not.
Now, after you had personally observed Millie and examined her body, coupled with the history given to you by DFACS and Millie's inability to tell you how the injuries occurred, what, if any, concerns did you have?
They were suspicious, concerning for non-accidental, but not conclusive.
So that was one of the things that you considered as
Yes.
non-accidental trauma?
Yes.
Now, after treating Millie on November 17, 2015 at Piedmont Hospital, did you have any other involvement in this case?
No.
Thank you, Ms. McNair. No further questions. Defense counsel might have some for you.
Ross.
Good morning. My name is Kareem Mull, and I just have some questions for you. On November 17, 2015, you diagnosed Millie Place with an iliac crest contusion, correct?
Yes.
And an iliac crest contusion normally occurs as a result of sports injuries, correct?
That I don't know.
Did you not attach to your medical records information that said that an iliac contusion occurs as a result of sports injuries?
I may have attached some basic information on iliac contusions, and it may have included that.
And contusions are bruises, aren't they?
Yes.
And you were unable to date the bruises that you saw?
No, not specifically.
You weren't able to?
As far as to say they happened 3 days ago or 5 days ago?
Yes, you couldn't say that, could you?
Not conclusively.
And minor injuries will give you a fairly painless bruise, correct?
Pain is very subjective. Individuals will have serious bruises with very little pain. Other individuals can have a minor bruise with significant pain.
But isn't it true that the information you attached said specifically that minor injuries will give you a painless contusion and major injuries will give you more pain?
Typically, as a general rule.
And most serious contusions may stay painful and swollen for a few weeks.
They can.
And are you aware that Millie Place, on several occasions prior to your talking to her, stated that state was able to formulate and was able to state how she obtained that bruise?
I was not aware.
You were not aware that she had said that she got those bruises as a result of her knee banging into her elbow from gymnastics?
I was not aware of that statement.
In fact, this could be caused as a result of play and roughhousing, couldn't it?
I think anything is possible. In my experience, those were pretty large bruises. It would have to be pretty significant roughhousing.
If a child were to have slid down the rungs of ladders, could that have caused that injury?
I have never evaluated a child that slid down a rung of ladders. I couldn't say.
Okay, so you don't know.
I don't know.
Now, you found her to be well-developed and well-nourished, correct?
Correct.
And you said she's in no distress, correct?
No obvious outward distress.
So, but you wrote no distress, correct?
Yes.
And you wrote she is active.
Yes.
And you said her head had no signs of injury, correct?
There were no signs of serious injury that I noted.
You didn't see any signs of any injury on her head, did you?
Not that I recall.
Now, you said the pain is mild, correct?
As the patient reported.
So the patient reported mild pain.
Yes.
And and you also wrote down that she had full range of motion.
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what that means?
That would mean that the individual can move the extremity or joint in all the planes and ranges that an individual typically can.
You wrote that she had no deformity and no inability to bear weight, correct?
Correct.
You wrote that she had no loss of sensation and no muscle weakness, correct?
Correct.
You said there was no swelling or tingling, correct?
Correct.
And when you did a review of systems, on page 4 of your documents, you wrote patient herself essentially denies complaint.
Correct.
You said there was no tenderness in her abdomen.
Correct.
No guarding.
Correct.
And what does guarding mean?
Guarding is when you palpate a patient's abdomen and they tense up.
And there was none of that, was there?
No.
There was no rigidity.
No.
You found normal strength in her limbs, correct?
Correct.
You found no tenderness.
Correct.
No bony tenderness.
Correct.
No swelling.
Correct.
And no laceration.
Correct.
And you noted that there was no abrasion.
Correct.
You also noticed red bumps around the buttocks, correct? That was a rash.
Yes.
And that is not suspicious for inflicted injury, is it?
Not necessarily.
Okay. So a rash, people can't give you a rash. A third person can't give you a rash.
Unless it's contagious.
Okay. But in terms of abusing a child, you cannot abuse a child and give him a rash with your hands unless you're contaminated, correct?
I wouldn't know.
Okay. But a rash is normally not from inflicted injury, is it?
I would think not.
Okay. So that's no, right?
No.
Now, were you made aware that there had been issues with bedwetting? Were you
No.
made aware of that?
No.
Were these rashes looked to you to be what is called molluscum?
No.
Were you aware that she had had molluscum in the past?
No.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Did you also note that Millie's elbow worsened with, her condition worsened with movement?
She stated that that was when it hurt.
And can someone have no discoloration, no bleeding, no bone protrusion in an area where there's a bruise and still have an injury?
Yes.
And can a person have no discoloration, no bleeding, and no bone protrusion in an area where there is a bruise, and that bruise be caused by non-accidental trauma?
It is possible.
Thank you. No further question.
But you cannot tell us whether this was an inflicted injury or not, correct?
Correct.
You cannot tell us whether this was abuse or not, can you?
No.
And you don't know if she didn't obtain these injuries as a result of playing, roughhousing, falling down ladders, that sort of thing.
No, of course not.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. And you can step down. Any objections to this being excused?
No, Your Honor.
And you're excused.
Am I
Please, you're released.
excused permanently?
Yes. Ms. David Ball's next witness.
State House Tessa Daniel.
Tessa Daniel. Right here, please. what she's in place, would you please swear to this?
You please raise your right hand. You swear upon the testimony you're about to give to be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please lower your name. State your true and correct legal name.
My name is Tessa Jalen Daniel.
And if you could please spell that out for the court reporter.
TESSAJILLYNDANIEL.
And Tessa, who are your parents?
Regina Lynn Banks is my mother, and Richard Franklin Clendenning is my father.
And your grandmother?
That's Peggy Ann Banks.
And do you have children?
I do.
And your oldest child, what's her name?
Millie Air Place.
And what's Millie's birthday?
It is 10/4/11.
And your second child?
Laila Marie Daniel.
And what was Laila's birthday?
July 18th, 2013.
And your next child?
Carmelie Carter Clendenning.
And what's Carmelie's birthday?
September 11th, 2015.
And your next child?
Merci Gray Daniel.
And what's your birthday?
October 23rd, 2016.
Do you have custody of your children?
No, ma'am.
Do you recall when you lost custody of them?
April 2015.
What was the reason why you lost custody?
I failed a drug screen.
Was there ever any allegations of physical abuse by you with defects?
No, never.
And when you lost custody of your kids, do you know where they went or who they went to?
When defects officially got involved or when they left?
You know, I'm gonna back up from there. When Millie was born, did she have any birthmarks or birth defects at all?
No, ma'am.
Any medical issues at all?
No, ma'am.
What about Laila when she was born?
She had a red mark on the back of her neck called a stort something, but they said it would go away. It went away after about 2 weeks.
And what part of her body was that on?
That was the back of her neck. It's just a little red strawberry looking thing.
And did she have any other birth defects or birth issues?
No, ma'am.
You'll share with me Martha States Exhibit 82 and 83. Do you recognize those?
Yes, ma'am.
And what are they?
That's Laila. When she was born.
And that states 82?
Yes, ma'am.
And states 83, do you recognize that?
Yeah, I took that when she was a couple months old.
And is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you observed when you took those photographs?
Yes, ma'am.
And states 82 and 83 be admitted into evidence?
Admitted 82 and 83.
And what's in states 82? What's in states 82?
That's Laila when she was born, like right after she was born.
Did Laila ever have any, light spots or discoloration on her skin when she was born?
No, ma'am, other than the stort thing on the back of her neck.
And states 83. What's that?
That was just a picture I took of her.
Of who?
Of Laila.
How old was Laila at that time?
I think she was about 3 months, maybe.
And the same thing, did she have any discolorations or any marks on her body at that time? Any light patches or anything?
No.
What about in her stomach area at all?
No, ma'am. There's no filter on that picture either, like at all.
Was that before the time of filters? Maybe?
Not exactly, but I just didn't filter that one yet.
I'm digging that. And I was asking you about, let me ask you, have you had any struggles with drugs?
Yes.
For how long?
For a long time, since I was probably about 16.
And have you sought treatment for that drug addiction?
A couple times.
And are you still working on treatment for that addiction?
Yeah, I think I'll be working on that forever.
And when you're talking about, I guess, 2015, you said that DFACS got involved.
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever a time prior to 2015 where DFACS was involved in any way?
Well, Millie, I think it was on New Year's 2014. Millie got out of the house while I was upstairs with Laila and my mom, and Millie downstairs was her playroom. So I didn't think that she was gonna go outside or anything. I figured she was going to her playroom, but I didn't notice she was, usually you'll hear Millie like in the next 2 minutes. But I didn't hear her. So I went downstairs to check and I saw the garage doors open, she wasn't there. And the next thing I knew, I was freaking out looking in closets everywhere for her. But
how long did you look for Millie?
before I went outside and realized she was really out there. It probably took, I don't know, it was frantic, maybe a minute.
And at some point you went outside.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to find Millie when you went outside?
Well, my brother and sister took off in the car to go look down the street, and I was just standing there calling her name, and then a cop car pulled up, and Millie was leaning out of the front seat, and she was like, "Mommy," and I just broke out crying because I don't know, that was awful.
What happened as a result of Millie getting outside? Did you ever have to
Yeah.
go down to the police station? What happened?
No, they came to my house. Defects did.
And what was the result of defects coming out to your house?
Well, they just gave us a safety plan in order for like putting locks on the doors, like the childproof locks, and they made sure to, just the basics, like just safety proof our house.
Did they take her out of your custody at that point at all?
No. They checked the food and everything was okay. Like everything was okay except for the fact that she'd gotten out. They left and they closed the case.
Prior to 2015, was there ever a case with defects involving Laila, in the care of Laila?
Not specifically because of Laila.
Was there something prior to 2015 involving defects?
Besides Millie
what you were
getting.
talking about Millie getting out, was there any other incidents?
No.
And in 2013, you said Laila was born July 18th of 2013? And how long did she remain in your custody after she was born in 2013?
It was through her first birthday because I remember having her first birthday. They took her. Well, I got sick and went to the hospital. My mom kind of sent her to live with a family friend.
Do you know who that family friend was?
Cynthia Tate. She was a coworker as well.
She was a coworker of yours? Or
And my mom's. We all worked the same place.
And where were you working at that time?
Hateville Medical Center.
And how long had you known Cynthia Tate before she began to take care of Laila?
I didn't send Laila to live with her, but I knew her about. I've been working there since about. I guess I want to say before I got pregnant with Laila, so I don't remember exactly the date.
That's fine, but sometime before 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And you said at some point your mom took Laila to stay or have Miss Tate take care of her.
Yeah.
Do you recall when that was and how long Laila was with Miss Tate?
I guess unofficially, like when she was just living there, it was. It was a couple months.
Had you ever been to Miss Tate's home?
I'd been there before she lived there. I hadn't been there, but then afterwards, I went a couple times to some family functions and to visit with Laila and stuff.
And what about Millie? While Miss Tate was taking care of Laila, where was Millie?
Millie was either with me or my grandmother. My grandmother and her are really close.
And you said that you would go and visit Laila while she was with Miss Tate. About how many times do you think that happened during the time that she was staying with Miss Tate?
How many times did Millie visit Laila?
Did you go visit Laila?
Before defects came out?
Yes, ma'am.
I went there for a couple different holidays. So I was there for was it Thanksgiving? It's on my Google Photos. It's usually how I keep up with my timeline. But
was that when you said Thanksgiving? Is that Thanksgiving of 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other holidays you can think that you went to the Miss Tate's house?
Not specifically. I know I'd been there a couple times this year though.
Did you ever go and take Laila and where she went and stay with you overnight or for a long period of time while she was staying with Miss Tate? And you need to answer verbally.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
While Laila was staying with Miss Tate, were there times when you went and picked up Laila and kept her overnight for days or weeks during the time that she lived with Miss Tate?
No.
So when you would see her, it would be at Miss Tate's home?
Yes.
And Millie was with you?
Sometimes, or with my grandma, yeah.
At some point, did Millie go to live somewhere else besides with you or with Miss Tate, or with your grandma?
No, not until she actually went to Miss Tate's. But she was only there until her ex-husband. Am I going? No. Okay.
So Millie was living with your grandma, and at some point did she go live with Miss Tate?
Well, we went over there, and we met her ex-husband and his new wife.
Do you remember their names?
Scott and Christy Chapman.
The Chapmans.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said you went over. Where did you go over to?
To Miss Tate's.
You met the Chapmans.
I met the Chapmans. Yeah.
What happened when you met the Chapmans at Miss Tate's house?
They were really good with Millie, and they just they seemed to be good people. Like, and I had stuff going on. Like, I had a probation warrant and stuff, and I knew that I was gonna have to leave Millie, and that she didn't have exactly a stable. Like, she was staying with me and my grandma, but she wasn't exactly. She still lived with me, so I had to get her settled. And I made it to where the Chapmans and my grandmother, had an open line of communication. I guess they knew each other. So before I left Millie and told them I had to go take care of the warrant, and
Did you ask the Chapmans to take care of Millie while you had to take care of Millie?
yes, ma'am.
And do you know how long, did they agree to take Millie?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how long Millie stayed with the Chapmans?
Not offhand, like, not exactly. It was a couple of months while I had to go to jail and stuff.
I was not going to answer my next question. Did you ever visit Millie while she was staying with the Chapmans?
I never actually went to their house because it was really far.
And you said she was there for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
What happened after those couple of months of living with the Chapmans?
I think her father and my grandmother went and got her without asking or something.
And when they went and got her father, would that be Jacob Place?
Yes, ma'am.
When they got Millie, where did they take her?
I mean, I don't exactly remember where they took her. Probably my grandma probably kept her.
I was going to have a follow-up question. To your knowledge, did Millie continue to stay with the Chapmans after your grandma and Jacob went?
No, not after they went and picked her up, to my knowledge.
After your grandma and Jacob went and picked up Millie, when's the next time that you saw Millie? Let me ask you this. Did Millie ever come back to live with you?
No, but I went, she actually went back to, now it's kind of coming back a little, she went back to Cynthia's house, because I went there too.
And so at that time, who was living with Miss Cynthia Tate?
It was her daughter and her daughter's son.
If you can tell me their names.
Tiffany and Lucas. Okay. And who they helped out with Laila a lot, helped Cynthia out with Laila. And then it was Cynthia, and they let me come there so I could help out with my girls and still be around them and them still be in a stable environment.
And how long did that living arrangement last?
Until defects came out, and that's when they drug tested me. It was in April.
And what happened after when you were drug tested?
They said if I wanted my girls to stay there, that I had to leave.
And did you leave?
Yes.
And was defects involved any further with you and the girls?
Yeah, that was kind of the beginning of our journey.
What happened after that incident?
Laila stayed with Miss Tate for a little longer, and Millie went with my grandmother.
How long did that last?
Not very long.
Where did you go?
Back with a boyfriend at the time.
How long did Millie stay with your grandma and Laila stay with the Tates after you tested positive for drugs?
Let's see, that was April, and probably about a month maybe.
Did you see the girls during that time period, during that month?
No.
At some point, did that living situation for Laila and Millie change?
I don't know if I'm getting my dates mixed up, so I don't think I am, but the living arrangement, as far as Miss Chapman couldn't take care of Laila anymore. Is that where we're at?
Well, I think we're at when Millie was living with your grandma and
Laila was with
Mr. Tate. And you had
Miss Tate, not
I think because you said a positive drug screen.
Right.
And you said that lasted for about a month.
Right.
So after that month, where did the girls go?
Then they went to a actual foster home where I didn't know, I didn't know where they were.
Do you know the names of who that foster parent was?
I do now because they found me. It was Browns.
And you said they found you. How did they find you?
On Facebook, they said that they said whenever defects dropped them off at their house, that they didn't tell them any background information. They just kind of said, here's some foster kids. And so she said that Millie told her my name and told her everything that she needed to find me.
And when they reached out to you, was it, you said on Facebook, did they call you, did they message you, or was it in person?
I want to say that she messaged me the first time, and then I gave her my phone number, and then we started calling.
During the time that was Millie and Laila both with Miss Brown?
They were still living there when she first reached out to me.
And during the time that they were living with Miss Brown, did you ever see the girls? Did you ever have visitations with them?
No.
Did you talk with them on the phone?
No, I didn't even get to do that. But Miss Brown said that she would come get me and take me to church and stuff like that, but I couldn't see the girls because it was against the rules.
To your knowledge, how long did the girl stay with Ms. Grant?
Not too long, maybe a month and a half, maybe, sort of. I guess I'm so not good with dates.
That's fine. At some point, did they leave Ms. Brown's house?
Of course, yeah.
Where did they go?
The Lamberts.
And did you know the Lamberts at all?
No, I never even talked to them while they lived with them. But my grandma did, I think.
So when they were living with the Lamberts, you didn't talk with them? Did you ever visit with them?
No, yeah.
At some point, did they leave from the Lamberts?
Yeah, that's when my caseworker contacted me and told me that they had somebody that I knew that was interested in taking my girls in until I could complete my case plan. They wanted to help out.
And who was that person?
It was Jennifer.
And did you know Jennifer?
Jennifer, yeah, well, she told me her name, so I went on Facebook and looked her up to see if I did know her because she said I should. And when I did that, I saw that it was Jennifer Holcomb, and I'd known her from living with her at a shelter.
And you tell me about your relationship with Jennifer. At that time, you knew her as Jennifer Holcomb?
Yes, ma'am.
That's the same person that's here in court, Jennifer Rosenbaum.
Yes, ma'am.
And what was your relationship like with Jennifer Holcomb? You said that y'all were in the shelter at that time?
Right. She was a lot older than me. We weren't really like friends, but I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember us being enemies exactly. But then I didn't reach down deep in my brain to try to figure it out. All I saw was like her image, like how good her and pictures looked, and looked like she would be able to take care of the girls. And you know, she was a pretty upstanding person. Seemed like if she wanted to help me and she remembered me, that it was, you know, like I didn't even try to think of no bad stuff. I was like, I just kind of accepted that.
And did you ever have contact with the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Yeah, after I looked her up and stuff, I messaged her, and there was already a message from her that I guess it was a request maybe, or because we weren't friends yet, I didn't see it maybe. But after Samantha White told me about Jennifer, I looked her up on Facebook and messaged her back because I saw the message she sent me.
Were y'all friends on Facebook?
No, ma'am.
Did you have to accept a friend request from her or request her to be your friend?
I can't remember if I sent one or accepted one, but yeah, that had to take place before we could talk back and forth on Messenger.
And do you recall when that was, what the date was when that you received that message or messaged her back?
I want to say that she wrote me on either May 18th maybe, and I wrote back on the 20th of 2015. Or was it 15?
And I'm going to show you the March 16th, number 84. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 84?
Yes, ma'am.
And how are you able to recognize it?
It's from my messenger.
Have you had a chance to look at it and go through it? Have there been any changes made to it at all?
No, ma'am.
I'd ask that State's Exhibit 84 be admitted into evidence. No, should be admitted for record only.
Looks like we may continue with this resolution.
No objection.
All right, submit.
Thank you.
May be published.
And what is the date that that message was sent?
May 19th, 2015.
And what was the message that she sent you?
You want me to read it out? It says, hey girl, I know we haven't seen each other or talked in a while, but I wanted to let you know I'm praying for you. I met your girls last Wednesday at juvenile court. I work with the district attorney's office prosecuting juvenile offenders, and we used the same courtroom as defects cases. Your girls are beautiful and look so much like you. I think it was your mom who talked to me for a minute and said you were having a hard time. It just stuck with me over this past week, and so I wanted to reach out and let you know you are in my prayers.
And did you respond back to her?
Of course, especially after Samantha White told me that she was interested in the girls.
I don't know if you can read that or not. Is that your response to that?
Yes, ma'am. Let me read that.
Yes. What day did you respond back to her?
I responded back on the 20th of 2015.
And what was your response?
I said, thank you so much. God, I miss them so much. I can't believe I put my babies through all of this. When I knew what it felt like I knew what it felt like firsthand. I talked to Ms. White, and she told me that you were interested in getting my girls until I can work my case plan. I think that would be amazing. It would make me feel so much more comfortable with the whole messed up situation. I'm fully ready to work towards getting them back, but if they have to be away from me for a while, I would much prefer them be with you. Thank you so much. You are literally the biggest blessing.
And that was your initial contact with Ms. Rosenbaum in regards to getting your girls.
Yes, ma'am.
And why did you feel like this was a blessing?
Because I just felt like they could pay more attention like to them. I felt like they had good stuff going on. Like as far as stuff, you know.
Have you had any contact with Ms. Rosenbaum? When was
No.
the last time to your knowledge that you had spoken to her or even seen her?
A long time ago. A long time.
How did you know what was going on with her to make you feel comfortable?
I just looked at all her pictures of her and Joseph and their dogs and stuff, and I don't know, I just felt like they just looked like good people. And I felt like maybe if she knew me and reached out to me, that maybe I didn't have the best memory, but I figured that she couldn't mean nothing bad by that. Like, I felt like she had to have good intentions if she reached out to me.
Did you feel like your girls would be safe with the Rosenbaum?
Yeah.
Did you know Joseph Rosenbaum?
No, ma'am.
Had you ever met him before?
No, ma'am. I only knew her as Holcomb. I hadn't seen her since she'd been married.
After May the 20th, did you have any more contact with Ms. Rosenbaum?
Of course, a lot, because she started getting visitations with the girls, and she was the closest thing. And since they had been taken from me by defects, this was the first time that any of the actual people that had them would actually tell me things and update me. And she was a really uplifting person with her words, you know, whether she,
And the contact that you had with Ms. Rosenbaum, what was your main source of contact with her?
it was Facebook Messenger.
And how often would you Facebook Messenger with Ms. Rosenbaum?
Well, she's a talker, so a lot. We have a lot of messages together.
I'm going to show you this in Marcus Case Exhibit number.
Yes.
Do you recognize state number 85?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you able to recognize state 85?
These are messages between me and Jennifer.
And are those messages between the time frame of 2015?
14, 15, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Have there been any changes, deletions, or additions made to them?
No, ma'am, not.
And you've had a chance to go through them and go through them?
I have.
I'd ask the state's exhibit number 85 be admitted to evidence. I'm going to ask you, over the course of the time that you were messaging with Ms. Rosenbaum, did you ever message with Joseph Rosenbaum? No.
No, I didn't talk to him hardly ever.
What types of messages would you receive from Ms. Rosenbaum through Facebook?
Well, mainly just, I found it, I'm a really trusting person, so I automatically just assume that everybody at first wants the best for me, and, you know, they are really meaning what they're saying. So at this point, I was pretty brand new with her, and I trusted her. So I talked to her about stuff I was going through, and she was just really uplifting with things she said back to me.
Would you receive, besides messages, did you receive anything else from Ms. Rosenbaum through the Facebook message?
Yeah, she sent me pictures and stuff of all the stuff she did for Laila's birthday. And then, she sent me other pictures too, but, or she would tell me what am I?
No, but she would tell you things about the girls?
Yeah, like, or why I didn't see them. She'd say either Laila was sick, Laila was always sick.
I'm going to ask you about a conversation that occurred on August the 12th of 2015. When you were talking to Rosenbaum about the girls, was she giving you updates on what they were doing, how they were feeling?
Yeah. She tried to update me on that. I guess a lot, as far as, I don't know what she'd say, but she would say things that would say it was like an update, I guess, on them. Mainly, we really just talked about how I was coming along in the case to get them back, but if it, defects made me schedule my visitations and stuff through her, so I'd always try to ask her about that, but it'd never be a good time.
I'm going to direct your attention to a specific conversation on August the 12th.
Excuse me. But, where's that coming from? Where's that coming from? It's your phone. Please raise your hand.
It was mine. I don't know what happened to her. It's cut off. Your lighter's down.
All right. Well, this is a warning to you that it should go off again. then you'll be asked to leave your form, and then you'll not be permitted to bring a form back in here. Do you understand? Let's continue.
I'm going to direct your attention to page 64, states exhibit number 85. And when you're reading these messages from the report, do they read from the top up or from the bottom, from the top down or the bottom up, as far as the sequence of how they're coming in?
They're reading from the bottom up.
So we're going to start at the bottom. Is this a message that you received from Ms. Rosenbaum?
Yes, ma'am.
And what date was that?
August 12th, 2015.
And at what time?
At 2:05
And
p.m.
what was her message to you?
Just a heads up, I'm on my way home early. The daycare called and Laila has a fever and is throwing up.
And what was the next message that came?
At 2:06 p.m. same day, it says, I'm about to take her to Children's Healthcare to get her checked out, but the daycare thinks she's caught the bug going around in her class. I'm going to keep her and Millie separated so Millie doesn't get it.
And the next message?
A minute later, she said, but depending on what the doctor says, and after I talked to Ms. White, it may be a visit with just Millie.
Were you scheduled to have a visit with the girls on that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you, to your knowledge, did you know before that day that the girls were in daycare?
No, I mean, not that I'm aware of.
Did she ever mention daycare or where they were attending daycare to you?
No, I don't think so.
The next message. And then who's that from?
That one is from me. Yeah. On August 12th, 2015 at 2:16, I wrote her back. And I said, that's fine. One-on-one will help a lot, but my poor baby, please let me know after the doctor if she's okay. God, it's times like this, I wish I could be there for her. And hopefully the week after that, she'll be better and I can have a one-on-one with her.
And the response to that message?
It might have been an accidental, it just says I. And the one after that?
Yes.
It's I definitely will keep you posted. And then she said, and I'm sure Millie will enjoy the undivided attention.
And I'm showing you the next page states that 85, page number 65. Is that a continuation of this conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe you could start from the bottom. Who's this message from?
This one's from me. I said I lost her card too. And well, is this the continuation? I lost her card too. LOL. I knew I should have saved it in my phone. And then Jennifer responded and said I had it in my car cup holder, but I can't remember if I took it out and brought it to my office or what. Joseph could have put it somewhere when he cleaned the car when we got back from vacation. I just figured she would call and let me know about everything, so I didn't think I needed her number.
Thank you. On that, the 12th, did you have any more conversation with her about Laila and her being ill?
On the 12th on Facebook, I'm not sure. I don't think so though. I'm pretty sure that was the end of it until.
And this is page 63.
This is the good.
Is this a continuation of that conversation about Laila?
Yeah, I can't see the bottom one. This is the one. Oh yes, this is it.
And how does the message start?
It starts off, this is the middle of the other conversation where she was telling me about Laila getting sick at daycare, and she said this is one of the evils of daycares. If one of the kids gets something, it seems to pass around. And then she said, Millie just asked my husband, I've been meaning to ask you, are there only boys at your work? Oh, she asked.
So she responded about telling you something that we had done that day?
Mm-hmm. And then she said, like, out of nowhere, LOL. And I responded and said, haha, she is silly. She's going to be the president of the United States. My little inquisitive 3-year-old teenager, LOL. And Jennifer said, I almost spit out my water. Like, where did that come from?
Now, what is this little icon at the top of the page here, right there?
That's a picture.
And so did you receive a picture that day as well, besides just messaging?
Yes. It was.
Let me show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 86.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it fair and accurate depiction of what you received that day?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd ask that State's Exhibit 86 be amended.
Six.
And do the state 86 include all the pictures that were sent to you, including some of the text that we're going over?
Yes, ma'am.
No, shouldn't be. And page 62, is this the picture that,
She sent me in between the water conversation.
so that what we saw, that icon box just a minute ago in the middle of the conversation, is this the picture that came through?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you continue to have conversation with her?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you could start from the bottom.
The lighting is weird, so you can't see it too well, but her little cheeks are red from her fever. Pitiful thing, she doesn't feel well at all. And then she said, I don't know why the lighting is dark at the bottom. It also may be the filter, LOL.
And then is that icon indicating that another picture was sent?
Yes, ma'am. That's the redo picture.
And I'm showing you States Exhibit 86, the second page of that.
Yeah.
Is that the second picture that came through from that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And did conversation continue?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the next part of that conversation?
She said, at the doctor's office now, this is us here, LOL. I resent the photo since the first one had a bad filter that made it look like her arm had something on it, LOL. And there's another picture. Yeah, that.
Third page of States Exhibit 86, was that third picture?
Yes, ma'am.
And these conversations are on August the 12th, they're all continuing from August the 12th?
Yes, ma'am. Continue reading it.
Yes, ma'am.
It says before we left out. I'm guessing that's what the description of the picture was. And then I think that's what I said up there. Yeah. Oh God, I love her. She looks so pitiful, but beautifully pitiful. I wish I could be with her.
And it's still page 61, the continuation of the same conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you can start from the bottom.
It says if Jennifer said, back to that, if she gets to feeling better and up to it, you can call tomorrow and talk with her if she can't make the visit. And then she said, I know how much you wish you could be comforting her. And she said, they're treating us pretty well though. We got back without waiting too long. And then they have her anti-nausea meds they have her anti-nausea meds a few minutes ago. Or the anti-meds they gave. So it's a stomach virus.
And that is the message coming from Jennifer, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if you can continue.
And then an upper respiratory infection that is just coming on. They said, luckily, they caught it this early with antibiotics. She will only be contagious for 48 hours. By the antibiotics will kick in and she will have few symptoms from the infection.
And page 60, States Exhibit 84.
Then it continues with get plenty of rest, lots of fluids, Pediasure. They're doing an IV to get meds in her faster, so we will be here for a little while, so they can monitor and get the meds started. I said, what I said?
Respond.
Yes, ma'am. I said, oh my goodness, my poor baby, an IV, how did she handle that? Oh my God, I'm supposed to be there for stuff like that. I can't believe everything. I can't deal with not being able to be there. Mommy, I'm so upset with myself. They need me and I'm not there. This is the worst feeling I've ever felt my whole life. And she responded to that and said she did fine with it. It was just to get fluids in her and start the meds. She didn't even flinch or cry. She just said, ouch. And is that me that put her back right there? That's her. Okay, I see. She does that with her immunization shots too.
And then starting at page 59, the States Exhibit number.
She continued, but she is a trooper. I was more freaked out about it than she was, LOL. And I replied. and said, wow, she is a trooper. Even I want to cry when I hear I have to get an IV. That makes me feel better a little, I guess. I still feel like a failure, though. Why does it feel like it's going to be so hard to do everything I need to do to get them back? I'm trying to stay faithful, but I'm freaking out on the inside. And she replied to that and said, it can be overwhelming, I'm sure, but you're doing it one step at a time. It seems minuscule, but you are making big steps and should be proud. You will get there. It just takes time. And then she said, Millie practicing her flips. We put her in gymnastics, so she's super into flipping and stuff.
And what time did that message come through?
The last one?
The last one.
It was 6:40 on August 12th, 6:47 p.m.
Prior to that, did you know anything about Millie being in gymnastics at all?
I don't think so.
And did you ever get any information about Laila being in gymnastics?
No, ma'am.
And did you continue to have conversation with Ms. Rosenbaum through Facebook?
Yes, ma'am.
And was the conversation continuing about the girls and how they were doing?
This conversation or the
No,
other
just your conversations
in the
general
future?
with Ms. Rosenbaum.
Yeah, I asked about the girls and how they were doing a lot, and she would tell me. And she usually tried to send pictures, but they were.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 87, and 88. Do you want to see the first? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I came off my whole stack to you earlier. Did you ever receive photographs of Millie in gymnastics?
Yeah, a couple of them.
And who did you receive those photographs from?
From Jennifer.
Did you ever receive any photographs of Laila in gymnastics?
No, ma'am.
Do you recall when you received the photographs of Millie?
I think that was closer to. Was it the end of August or November?
State's Exhibit 87.
September.
Do you recognize those?
I do.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of the photographs that you received of Millie?
Yes, ma'am.
I got the State's Exhibit 88 and 87 being met.
Can you check? 87, 88, or you get calls?
I'm showing you State's Exhibit number 87. So, when did you receive this?
September 16th, 2015.
And what is it?
It's Millie in her little tutu.
And what's the message above it?
The whole thing or just the part? It said, it doesn't matter what people can give someone so long as you have your love for them. By the way, Millie is doing great in gymnastics. She loves it.
And State's Exhibit 88. When did you receive that?
On September 21st.
And what is it?
Millie.
And where does it look like Millie's at?
At gymnastics. I would assume.
During the time that the girls were with the Rosenbaums, did you ever have any visits with the girls?
I did. I had one. I don't know if they were actually living there yet or visiting there, but it was no, they were living there because it was like July 31st, I think, was the last time I visited with the girls.
And where was that visit at?
It was at the defects office. It was supervised.
Was either one of the Rosenbaums present for that visit?
I saw Jennifer when she dropped them off, and then I saw her when she picked them up.
Did you have any conversation with her on that day?
If I did, it wasn't it wasn't memorable, I guess. I mean, it was probably just like a hi, how are you doing type thing.
And how long did your visitation last with the girls on the 31st?
I think they let us have an hour that day, I want to say.
Okay.
That's the normal visit.
Did you have any visits after that?
No, ma'am.
Were there other scheduled visits that you were supposed to have?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And what happened that you were not able to visit the girls?
It was always up to Jennifer.
And what would they?
They would be going on vacation, or they would, Laila was usually sick. That happened a good bit. Or just, I think one time she might have gotten in trouble or something, and I can't exactly remember. She did something wrong at daycare or something. She couldn't come. That might have been, I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly, but I'm pretty sure that was an issue one of the times. I think there was, I have a lot of...
Between the time, I guess, in May or June, when the girls went to stay with the Rosenbaums in November the 17th?
How many scheduled visits?
Yes.
Well, they weren't exactly, they never got to the scheduling point. They got to her trying to work out a date, but eventually we had, I know for sure we had that one that was scheduled for November 16th.
We're gonna talk about that in a minute. Was there ever a time that you got information regarding Laila from Jennifer in October that you knew?
Yeah, when she broke her leg.
And I'm gonna show you page 13 of State's Exhibit number 85. And is this the message you're referring to? What's the date that you received that message?
It says October 19th. Well, the bottom one I assume is October 19th.
And what time was that?
It was the very bottom.
At the time. The date of birth, I'm sorry.
Okay, October 19th, 2015 at 8:55 p.m.
And what's the message?
Hey girl, wanted to let you know Laila fell off the bars at gymnastics today and fractured her tibia, the bone in the lower part of her leg. She has a soft cast for now, but we'll have to get a hard cast in the next few days and no gymnastics for a while.
And before the message before that?
She was a trooper though. Doctor was so surprised because she thought it couldn't have been anything other than a twist or a sprain because Laila never cried. Not once.
And does the conversation continue about that situation?
Yes, ma'am. And she said that she laughed and joked and played the whole time we were there. And then and didn't even say anything hurt.
And did you respond back?
Yes, ma'am. I responded back on October 20th. I guess I finally got the message, and it was at 12:07 a.m.
And what was your response?
I said, "Oh my goodness, my baby! Thank you for telling me. She is so tough. I'm a terrible mother for not being there for them. I should have had them back. I hope it's not too late to fix me and my girl's relationship. I want to be a mommy. I've just been so scared. I got high. So I got high to forget my mistakes and responsibilities, but I honestly am ready to do what I need to do, and I feel God now more than I ever have in my life. I'm ready to be stronger. I realize I don't need anyone but myself to fix what I've broken."
Okay, let me know when you have a good stop.
Prior to getting this message on October the 19th, had you been messaging with Jennifer throughout that time?
Prior to this one?
Prior to October the 19th, like a couple of days before that. Had y'all been sending messages back and forth?
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you pages 15, 16, 17, and 18. And if you can flip through, so were there messages going back and forth between you guys between October the 15th and October the 19th?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there ever any mention of Laila having an issue with her leg?
No, not in them.
I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
This was before?
Yes.
No.
So a couple of days before you were messaging with Ms. Rosenbaum?
Yes, ma'am.
And does she make any mention about an issue with Laila's leg?
Mm.
Did she mention anything about Laila and the girls going to visit with your grandma?
No. I mean, no.
During those couple of days before you get the message about Laila breaking her leg?
No, ma'am. Oh.
If you can look through that too.
I don't think she mentioned anything about a visitation with. No. I was just confused because I remember at one time we talked about it, one of the visits with my grandma, but.
After she sent you that message, did you talk to her anymore about Laila breaking her leg?
No, ma'am.
Did she ever see you in the photographs after Laila broke her leg?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm showing you the Smart States Exhibit 89 previously shown to Defense Counsel. Do you recognize States Exhibit 89?
Yes, ma'am.
And does it fairly and accurately depict what you received from Ms. Rosenbaum?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd ask the States Exhibit number 89 be admitted into evidence.
And then, States Exhibit.
And when did you receive this photograph?
October 23rd, 2015.
And what is depicted in the States Exhibit?
It's Millie in her cast. I'm sorry, Laila in her cast. And with the arm brace.
Judge, this would be a good stop.
Oh, thank you. We're going to take a 15-minute break at this time. I'm going to ask that you, well, I'm not going to confine you to this area. During this 15 minutes, you're welcome to go wherever you'd like. But please be mindful of my admonitions. And if you're going to walk about, be sure that you don't have any conversations with anybody about anything related to this case. Thank you. Okay. Let's have the witness step down.
Oh, yes.
Okay, it appears as though we're still having an issue with juror number, juror number 60.
Mr. Catton,
The parties approached just before we took our break, just to mention the fact that he was dozing. Is that fair characterization of the concerns?
yes, that's right.
Oh, and both the state and the defense are in agreement that this is what's been happening.
Yes, yes, it is.
And this is notwithstanding our admonition yesterday that he should pay attention. This is the same room. Okay. What are the parties requesting that we do at this time?
Your Honor, the state's suggestion would be that he remain on the jury, but when it comes to deliberations, that he be replaced with the first alternate. Because right now the alternates don't know the alternates, and I also, if he left, I think that might cause some other issues with other jurors. So I think he should remain, but just not participate in deliberations when we get to that point.
All right. I think that's a reasonable solution that's been proposed and the two have agreed to. So he is he's being replaced by the alternate juror, and nevertheless, we're fully required to stay.
We are assuming it would be alternate one.
Yes. Okay, let's take our break, and we'll see you all back here in 15 minutes.
I just wanted to let you know that our information is pictures of the children are being broadcast on the crime law. Hospital photos.
The B-22 orders applied to all of the media outlets. It was on day one. Okay, we're going to need to speak to the representative from the media who is responsible for broadcasting images via live stream. I believe that would be our pool cover person. And state your name, please.
Alan Bryant.
Mr. Bryant, yes, right. You solemnly swear affirm testimony about to give this matter the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
It's been brought to my attention that there are some images of the children that are being broadcast via live stream. Is that a correct statement?
It would be based on my company if they release them. I submit back to them and then they make a decision back there, so it's very possible. I can't say for sure.
Okay. Well, this is what the order on the Rule 22 request that was submitted says. It says in the third full paragraph, second sentence, no visual recordation of any kind, including both still and moving images, may be made of witnesses and alleged child victim, Millie Place, or any other child witnesses. So the point of this is obviously that there's to be no still or moving images of the child victim, Millie Place, or any other child witnesses.
I understand what you're saying, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I wasn't here when our counsel was arguing for our admission, and so what was transmitted to me was that anyone that was going to be in the courtroom, so that part of any image presented anywhere, such as the screen where they came from, was not shared with me.
Well, I'm not going to permit you to continue to broadcast until you can assure me that they are not going to be releasing any images of the trial victim, Millie Place, or any other child witness going forward. Because I'm going to have to hold somebody accountable. And that person will be the agent of the company who's here. And then perhaps the corporation more largely at some future hearing. So maybe you could use this 15-minute break to inquire of people who are at the company as to what their practice is and what they intend it to be going forward. And then you could report back, because if it's in contravention of this request, then again, I'm going to have to do something.
I understand, Your Honor, and it's unfortunate because I myself feel like you were put in this position with lack of information. So I will, in a minute, call my people and pretty much explain that it's not to be done. And in my case, I can control it as well by not shooting any more images.
Okay, well, whatever has to be done needs to be done in order to meet the requirements of the order. And right now, somebody's falling short. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're filming stuff they're not supposed to be filming. You got jurors falling asleep. I mean, what doesn't this case have? All right, anyways, yeah, looks like we made the goal today by some very generous donations up there. Thank you very much. And the donations help support, when they support my channel. And then at the end of the month, I usually donate a large portion of the income. Now, currently, I've been donating over 50% of the net revenue. You know that, you know, depending on how things go over in the future, or not, could be more, it could be less. You know, because I'm doing, you know, I have this as a monetized YouTube channel, and the channel does so much great stuff, and a lot of it, unfortunately, actually costs money, you know. And you know, when people do these YouTube channels, they, you know, we have channel memberships, we have super chats, all that stuff, and that's all the income. And there's ad revenue for videos. Usually the live streams almost never have ad revenue. So yeah, hopefully we can just keep on doing the same thing. You know, we've been doing this for 3 years now, 3+ years, 3 years and 8 months actually. And we've given $163,600 to true crime related charities and a DNA fund. And we'll be giving more at the end of this month. All right. And so I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel that can. If you can't, just hit that like button. That would be awesome. So thank you today to Daphne, Alley Cat, Cat Eye from Tammy Morell, Danny ICURN, Cat Eye from Ashy Snow, then Mama She 13, then Amy Higg at Cat Eye. That represented 150. So that's what always makes me nervous. It's like, if those 3 people didn't come through, we'd have $29. And then Mama She 13 again, Salty, and a new member, also Salty. Thank you. All right, so that's the part that makes you go, wow, that was total luck, you know. Yeah, lots of people getting in trouble. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you guys later. And as I always say, everybody, until next time, be safe out there. That does seem like a pretty interesting trial. What do you guys think so far, by the way? Hello? Anybody there? Anybody? Guess not.
Drama! Huh? What the hell? Bitch, please. Dude.
Mr. Martinez, are you angry at me? 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 Mr. Martinez, are you angry at me?